Armageddon struck and humanity drowned in blood. Demons swarmed the earth, forbidden zones opened, peace vanished overnight. In this chaos, one man rose, Chenchu. Silent, relentless, stronger than god or devil. While others perished, he transformed. A monstrous shadow of a reptile followed his every step. Salvation or destruction, which path will he choose? Is he the savior of the end, or the true end itself? Let's find out. Have you ever had a strange dream in which a huge beast fills the sun, darkens the sky, and seems so familiar and close, as if you are one? But Chenchu had such a dream. He looked at this beast killing flying creatures, and he felt as if they were one entity. People seeing this began to bow to him and his beast. The world revered him in this, as if he were a god himself. Currently he was in his room, and the evening news was playing on TV. On June 2nd, 2224, the Ning Zoo was attacked by a snake over 100 meters long. Experts have not yet identified the type of snake. Some residents managed to capture the giant snake on video, causing quite a stir on social media. Recently, criminals on the international wanted list have been roaming the city. Chenchu himself lay on the table with a bloody wrist, but for some reason he saw his body from the outside, and somehow strangely, wondering what was going on here, he decided to look back and saw his reflection in the mirror. He had somehow turned into a marine iguana. He was a second-year student at Ning University, renting his own apartment because living in a dorm was the worst thing. He also liked cold-blooded animals. They were very beautiful. A new batch of exotic pets arrived at the pet store, and his attention was immediately drawn to a marine iguana. They were usually affectionate, but at that moment, something went wrong. When he returned home and passed the aquarium, it broke the glass and pounced on him, biting his wrist. With his other hand, he clutched the phone tighter and hit the iguana with all his might, but the phone ricocheted right into his head, dealing him a strong blow. That's how he lost consciousness. And now, waking up, he sees this iguana in front of him. When he raised his hand, the beast repeated after him, somehow controlling the body of this lizard. He was very happy with this new ability and thought, is this some kind of golden finger? Is he really starting his hero's journey? But what should he do with it? Launch a broadcast showing off how smart his lizard is? Or maybe he should sell it at the market? Perhaps he's not destined to be a hero. When other people get cheats, they become powerful, gain new powers, or at least a system appears, and he's stuck here with a little lizard. At that moment, both of their stomachs began to rumble, and he, looking at the night landscape outside the window, said that he was so hungry, he hadn't eaten a crumb today. And what does a marine iguana eat anyway? In theory, regular meat should be enough for it. Afterwards, he expertly cooked a grilled steak and served the delicious dish to the iguana, who devoured it all on his own. Finally, the system appeared, reporting that after eating, his pet had gained 5 evolution points, and its physical strength had increased by 0.5. Now he could finally see his status window. He was currently level 0, with a constitution of 8.5 and a spirit of 12. He had a talent called mind control, as well as some traits, external aura and chi perception. He had fist fighting skills, cloud jumping, and springy legs. He looked at this system window in shock and wondered, were those really cheats? Afterwards, he looked thoughtfully at the inside of his palm and remembered his childhood, how his father taught him martial arts. While he was trembling in a half squat, his father said that without understanding the basics, practice would be useless. He would never learn anything. The root of his strength is in his legs. He must control them to feel the tension in his thighs and abdomen. Let him adopt the correct stance. Little Chenchu looked at him pitifully and asked for a break, as he was very tired, but he refused as only cowards come off halfway. Since MC didn't want to be a coward, he continued training. After the half squat, it was time to run. After he had completed a few laps, he tripped over a stone and fell to the ground with a crash. But even so, his father told him to get up. No one would lend him a helping hand in his adult life. One day, his father had to go on a long trip. Beforehand, he handed him a box with all his savings and said that he would walk the rest of the way on his own. Let him not neglect his martial arts training. The world is not as good as he thinks. Chenchu burst into tears and asked when they would meet again. He replied that he would meet when he became a great master, although, most likely, by then he would no longer be there. After that, he left the room, closed the door, and left him alone. Now he looked at the photo of them together and thought that 10 years had passed before he realized everything. The marine iguana burped loudly, tearing him away from his thoughts, and he noticed that it was eating so quickly. At that moment, he noticed something surprising. The iguana seemed to have grown a little. He immediately checked the status window and found out that his pet had received another 10 evolution points. Then, he decided to check himself. He looked in the mirror, lifted his shirt, and discovered muscles on his body. His body hadn't been so toned before, which meant that the points the iguana received affected him too. If it gained more points, it would be able to evolve, perhaps even growing huge, like in his dream. And then he would become a great martial artist. The next day, he went to the market to buy some food for his iguana. After buying 10 pieces of beef and 20 pieces of pork, he left the market and put the bag of groceries in the trunk, wondering if that would be enough. Afterward, he went home and cooked a sumptuous multi-course meal for his iguana. He wanted it to eat more, so he could become a martial arts master. Seeing so many dishes on the table, the iguana, of course, began to drool, and then ate everything alone, as always. MC thought that pork wasn't as good as beef, then glanced at his pet and tiredly stretched, deciding to get more beef next time. Having eaten its fill, the iguana went to bed. But he decided to remember his father's advice and train. He glared at the punching bag with fury, then hit it with all his might, and the system reported that after his intense training, his experience had increased by 5 points. Chenchu truly felt stronger. His muscles were tense. 2 days remembered his father telling him about this. Martial arts realms are divided into Ming, darkness, and transformation. The pinnacle of the Ming realm will make him a first-class fighter, capable of single-handedly defeating 10. The dark realm will make him a fighter capable of facing 100, something that usually happens in legendary families, and the transformation will give him the ability to fight 1,000. There are masters whose names are immortalized in history. As for and notice that the iguana was already quite large. One more dish and evolution will occur, so he hopes it will not disappoint him. After that, he gave his pet a huge piece of meat, and finally the evolution points reached 199. He prepared himself. He could not wait, and it finally happened. The system announced that the marine iguana was ready to evolve. Immediately after that, a current seemed to run through its paw, and Chenchu felt the same thing. They both writhed on the floor in pain. The iguana sprouted huge spikes on its back, and drool began to flow from its mouth. After this, the iguana began thrashing around the room, destroying everything in its path. When the pain subsided a little, MC exclaimed that he hadn't thought it would hurt so much. He turned his gaze to his iguana, which had also calmed down, and he rose to his feet to test its strength. He took control of the iguana and hit the punching bag, causing it to fly into pieces, and he noted with a smile that it now had unusual power. He looked at his status window. His constitution was now between 28 and 56, and his spirit between 16 and 18. Since he hadn't felt anything particularly strong yet, he decided he was still too weak and said that as he evolved, his attributes would also grow, meaning his strength would also increase in the future. He would eventually surpass everyone, which even scared him a little. His limit of experience gained from training per day is 100 points. Since the improvements are reflected in him, he will have to rely on the marine iguana to strengthen his body. Using his body, he began to hit a punching bag, and when he saw such a powerful blow, he was very surprised. The iguana can release energy. The iguana continued training, and suddenly there was a knock on the door, distracting them. It turned out it was an angry neighbor. He was probably very angry that he was making so much noise. But when Chenchu opened the door, the man froze in horror. He saw a powerful and threatening aura emanating from him, which made him tremble with fear and wondered, what's wrong with this guy? It's like his aura is pressing on him. He smiled nervously and said that he heard some noise, so he came. Is he starting some renovations here? MC smiled awkwardly and apologized, saying he was just training, but he didn't think it would be so loud. Hearing this, the man nervously thought it felt like an earthquake. He wondered how he managed to train so much and peeked into his apartment. Seeing the complete mess and chaos inside, he was very surprised. He headed to his own home and asked him to train less intensely and preferably more quietly. Chenchu said goodbye and apologized again, promising to adjust his training plan, for which the man was very grateful, and then took the elevator to his floor. As soon as the elevator doors closed, a marine iguana appeared in the hallway, glaring meaningfully at the spot where his neighbor had just been. MC closed the doors and glanced at his pet, thinking that the iguana was too big. Now even this room was too small for it. It seemed it was time to return it to its natural habitat. That same evening, he set out and arrived at the sea closer to sunset. He stopped and said that they were finally there, then got out of the car with his pet and closed his eyes, concentrating. He took control of its body and headed into the water, then dived and activated his sixth sense. Now he feels everything that happens within a 10-meter radius around him. While swimming, he discovered many interesting sea creatures. For example, a fish with 5 eyes. He decided it was an excellent target and headed towards it. Flicking his tail, he suddenly accelerated and wanted to hit the fish, but he miscalculated his strength and crashed into the seabed, and the fish swam around him in confusion. He quickly collected his thoughts and dashed to the side, aiming for another fish. As soon as he devoured it, he decided to take a short break, and the system reported that after eating, the marine iguana received 10 evolution points, adding 1 to his constitution. He continued hunting and thought that after evolution, he gets 1 point for each meal, but the mutated fish gives a full 10. With the appearance of such creatures in the ocean, it seems that the world is now far from peaceful. He continued devouring the mutated fish, and the system reported that his clone has reached the daily limit of 100 points. He cannot get more today. He thought that to human eyes, the ocean at night is cold and dark, like pitch, but through the eyes of an iguana, the underwater world is so bright and colorful. Being an amphibian, the marine iguana can stay underwater for a long time, but due to the lack of gills, it has to rely on its lungs. Therefore, it needs to climb to the surface every time. He noticed a small cave nearby, swam into it, and came out on land. He looked around and noticed that it was a good place to hide. He decided to leave the iguana there, then got into the car and drove home. Near the road, he noticed a suspicious house with a car parked next to it, and he wondered if someone lived in such a place. A cry for help was heard from the boarded-up windows, and he immediately stopped the car and decided to put his powers to use. He drove off a little, and the men hiding in the house followed him, then returned to the kidnapped girl named Lin Ru, whose mouth their friend was now gagging. The man kicked him and exclaimed, Will he follow her or what? He couldn't put the gag back in her mouth. The guy called him boss and said that it was so dark in here, he didn't notice. The boss examined the girl carefully, then approached her and told her to shut up and be a good girl, or he would leave her with his guys all night. Meanwhile, Chenchu approached the house. He used his abilities and was able to see everything that was happening inside. The guys were drinking with each other. The girl was sitting, afraid to squeak, and the third guy was eating chips and looking at something on his phone. He wondered if this was a kidnapping, maybe human trafficking. Two of them had knives. He decided to deal with them as quickly as possible so as not to endanger the hostage, and, gathering all his strength, he knocked down the doors with a bang and entered, raising dust. The guys immediately armed themselves, but he didn't let them even get close. He kicked one of them, throwing him several meters away, so that he hit his back against the wall, and his boss pounced on Chenchu from behind. He reacted quickly and delivered a blow that broke all his ribs. Because of this, he stumbled back, losing his balance, and then his subordinate caught him. He asked the boss for a break and assumed a fighting stance, telling Chenchu that he was Yuan's disciple, and that it was his turn to introduce himself. He replied that he was Luo Tuan's disciple, and that his name was Chenchu. His opponent launched the first strike to a loose fist, but MC wasn't so simple, grabbing his arm, causing him to lose his balance, and then was about to kick him. But this guy was a true martial artist. He launched the second strike, two knights of the Tang dynasty, parrying his kick and then punching him in the head with all his might. While he was flying away from his strike, he remarked that it was quite good, quickly regaining his balance and preparing for the strike. And his opponent, realizing what he was about to do, became frightened. This time, he didn't have time to react. Chenchu hit him with the 8-limbed strike, Iron Mountain Helmet technique, so hard that he was thrown aside, and he grinned and said that it was interesting. He tried to get up and said that he didn't expect to meet Luo Tuan's disciple after coming down the mountain. Iron Mountain Helmet and 8-limbed technique, it impressed him. MC exclaimed that it was such a shame, and he, wiping away the blood, asked what he was talking about. He came closer to him and said that he never thought the thug would have a fist technique. It was a shame that disciple Yuan took the winding path, but he was still a disciple. He realized that in this world, either you drown or you are drowned. After these words, he pounced on him. He extended 2 fingers, intending to gouge his eyes out, but Chenchu quickly reacted meters away. After that, he thought that a battle between martial arts students was dangerous. He had a feeling that his strength and spirit were superior to his, but he couldn't control himself. No matter how idiots they were, you can't treat people like that. He decided to deal with it later and turned his attention to the girl who had been waiting all this time for him to free her. He cut the ropes, and she immediately threw herself into his arms with gratitude. And he, calming her down, gave her the phone and told her to wipe her tears quickly. She could call the police as soon as he left, but he needed help. If the police asked about him, then let her say that she didn't see his face. She nodded with a serious look and agreed to this, and 10 minutes later, the police arrived. They entered the building, guns at the ready, and when they saw the kidnapped girl standing surrounded by beaten guys lying on the floor, they were very surprised. Time passed, and a police officer named Guan Qing came to her superior with the information he had recently requested. They were able to find footprints on the broken door. The poor guy was kicked from the front, and the door flew 3 meters away. The force of the impact was simply colossal. 2 of the kidnappers died immediately, and the third fell into a coma after a concussion. She put a photo of the victims on his desk and said that, according to the kidnapped girl, Lin Ru, the man was wearing a mask, so she couldn't see him. The deputy chief looked at the report and asked, "How is this even possible? The greatest force the Boxing King could muster was even less. Unheard of. Where does an ordinary person get such strength?" She noted that the strength was truly inhuman, but the oddities don't end there. At that moment, a rumble of thunder was heard. She glanced at the lightning outside the window and said that a storm was approaching. MC, meanwhile, stopped the car on top of a cliff and watched the shore from above. A boat moored to the shore, carrying a man named Zhang Changshu and his subordinates. They walked forward along a forest path, and one of his subordinates said that he had just received money and had already spent it on a woman. "Isn't that wasteful?" Another guy agreed with him and said that they had worked for so long and they earned a little over 2 million. Their boss asked if they even knew who she was. Money would no longer be a hindrance for them with her. They were delighted and asked, "Is this true?" The boss turned to one of them and asked if he had already sorted out the company. He answered that he had already arranged the delivery of goods. They rented a luxury office building for accommodation, as he requested. He also asked to find the most beautiful secretaries and receptionists for them, so he definitely would not be disappointed. Changshu grinned and said that thanks to his underwater breathing, he was alive. As soon as they find the location of the sunken ship, they will drag all the treasures ashore and they will have all the money in the world. Let them just follow him. At that moment, there was a rustling sound in the nearby bushes, as if someone quickly jumped out of them, and Changshu turned around and exclaimed, "Who is there?" After that, he took out a knife and prepared to meet the unexpected guest. It turned out to be Chenchu, standing by a tree nearby. He said that, of course, he had seen a lot of idiots, but he was just something. The man immediately rushed towards him and exclaimed that he was brave, but people like him don't live long. At that moment, MC raised one leg and then slammed it on the ground with all his might, causing an explosion that threw the man several meters into the air. As soon as he dropped to the level he needed, he punched him in the stomach and then kicked him, pinning him to a nearby tree. His subordinates, meanwhile, were shocked. Their boss had become stronger and faster after receiving superpowers, but he was still losing to him. They decided to run away, but Chenchu quickly caught up with them and hit them on the back of the head, causing them to lose consciousness. After that, he turned to their boss and ordered him to look him in the eyes. He decided to test his power of mind control and ordered him to say his name and what he was doing here. The man's eyes flashed purple, and he succumbed to his influence and approached him, saying his name was Chenchu and that he was a smuggler. He had learned to breathe underwater a month ago. MC was overjoyed that he had succeeded, and the man continued, saying that he raided sunken ships in the ocean and exchanged the spoils for money. MC found out everything he needed and let him go, causing him to immediately fall to the ground and exclaim, "What happened to his arm?" He replied that he had broken it himself, and he winced in pain, saying that he understood. So Chenchu realized that the mind control had affected his judgment. He ordered him to rest and return to the ship, after which he thought that to raise his lizard, he needed a lot of food. Chenchu had a ship and connections. Maybe he could get him something useful. After that, he took control of his subordinates and thought that this was an excellent ability. Of course, when he controls Chenchu, there is some resistance, but these guys are a completely different matter. His ability is even more effective on weak-willed and stupid people. After that, they arrived on the ship. The man asked Chenchu who the guy next to him was, and he replied that he was his boss, and they should be polite to him. MC leisurely walked along the deck, and Chenchu ordered his subordinate to prepare the contract for transfer. This ship now belonged to his boss. After this, the ship transfer agreement was successfully transferred to Chenchu, and he, turning to his new subordinate, ordered him to wait for him in the office tomorrow, and he told Chenchu to go to the hospital since he was injured. The next day arrived. He continued hunting with the iguana, and at the same time, he trained in the sports gym, raising his physique stat. While he was striking, he thought that he can't rely only on a clone to become stronger. He needs to train himself. After 2 battles, he feels his control has improved. Meanwhile, the marine iguana climbed into the cave, and the system reported that the absorbed energy had been assimilated, giving him 6 evolution points. Having finished training, he went outside and thought the transfer process was complete. He hadn't gone outside all day to gain 90 evolution points, and he also tightened his body. Tomorrow, he would head to the sea rift. It turns out he's not the only one with abilities. He needs to get stronger, especially when he doesn't know what awaits him in the ocean. Meanwhile, Chenchu's subordinates were spending their time on the ship. One of them opened the hatch and said that there had been practically no fish lately. His friend, lying down nearby, said that there might be a whole school of fish below. Maybe even sharks. Sharks move in groups, and even killer whales avoid them. Meanwhile, several sharks attacked a killer whale, one of them targeting the marine iguana. Seeing the shark rushing straight at him, MC froze, and when the shark's fangs almost pierced him, he lunged to the side and bit it, starting to devour it alive. The system reported an increase of 10 evolution points, and he thought that the shark's meat was so tender. After that, the system reported that his clone was ready to evolve and asked if he was ready for this. He climbed onto land and thought, now they give him a choice, this time he is ready. The system activated evolution and a wild pain pierced the marine iguana, while Chenchu also began to writhe in pain in the gym. Finally, the evolution was complete. He was now level 1, Constitution 130, Spirit 38. His skill experience had significantly improved, and the marine iguana now acquired the ability Affinity with Water. He lay down on the floor and thought with a smile that he finally did it. His physique surpassed that of a human, but it didn't double even after evolution, which makes sense. He thinks it's because his stats were low last time. He noticed the marine iguana's new ability and, after transferring into its body, noticed that it had become even larger than it was before. Its strength had increased and its claws were like steel. It can swim at speeds of up to 70 kilometers per hour, which is faster than a ship, and the resistance while swimming became less, which must be due to its ability. After that, he called one of his new subordinates and asked if anyone had found out about the treasure. He answered that no one had found out about it, and he said that then they would find it themselves. How is everything going there? He told him that they had found several locations with sunken ships, but without Chenchu they were powerless. He told him not to worry, they could handle it themselves. He imagined a map in his head, and thought that they had mostly explored the shallow waters of the routes used by Country Z and the main commercial routes of countries H and R. But the deep waters were still full of ships. He decided to see what the marine iguana was doing there. It was currently located to the southeast, 25 kilometers from the shore of the Yellow Sea. He thought that now, after evolution, he could breathe longer underwater, and his sense of smell had improved. He could sense everything at a distance of up to 20 meters. As soon as he finished with his business, he could set out. Isn't the point of raising a clone to enjoy life? He checked his phone and thought that it was already 11 p.m., time for him to eat. Meanwhile, on one of the streets, another lady in distress was sitting by a lamppost and waiting for her savior. Time passed. He left the restaurant and thought that it was delicious, but 3,000 for dinner was robbery. He only has 20,000 in his pocket, but soon he will take over the Changshu company, and he will finally understand what it's like to be rich. Ahead, he noticed two suspicious guys hanging around an unconscious girl. He pointed his finger at them and exclaimed, "Why are they looking at her?" He thought that as he gained strength, his passion for martial arts would also awaken. While there was no real danger, he shouldn't interfere. But he had already managed to provoke the guys, and they took out knives, threateningly telling him to leave, and they would pretend that they didn't see him. But MC wasn't going to back down that easily. He enveloped his body in a powerful aura, and a huge silhouette of a cat appeared behind him, his whole body literally blazing. The guys had the feeling that some wild animal was looking at them, and they decided to run away. The girl laughed at them and asked if they were already wet their pants from fear. The MC mentally noted that she was clearly crazy, and one of the guys nervously clenched his teeth with the thought that it's not every day that you can meet such a girl. Her words offended his friend, and he pounced on Chenchu, exclaiming that they had nothing to fear from him. He was an ordinary guy, just overconfident. As soon as they were close enough, he assumed a fighting stance and then kicked them with all his might, sending them flying several meters. He realized he had only used 10% of his strength. Otherwise, the blow would have turned these guys into mush. He would let them go this time, but not the next. Recovering from the blow, the guy threw his friend onto his back and ran away, exclaiming that Satan himself had possessed him. The girl waved at Chenchu and laughed, saying that he had incredible strength, and he frowned, thinking that she was still not herself. While she was pestering him, he called the police and reported that there was a woman near the bar, apparently very drunk, and she also looked strange. She started seducing him and asked if he wanted to have some fun. Maybe he could walk her home? A couple of minutes later, the police arrived. While she was being loaded into the car, he gave a statement, and as soon as he figured everything out, he thought it was time for him to take control of the iguana and find the ship. He transferred to the body of it, and, seeing debris on the seabed, thought that the man was right. The ship was definitely here. With his sixth sense, he only senses what is within a 20-meter radius. He needs to develop it further. He climbed inside the ship, and seeing gold bars inside, was very surprised. He called his subordinate and ordered him to direct the ship 3 kilometers to the east, and the guy asked if their boss was the only one who could breathe underwater. The man said they wouldn't pry into other people's secrets. While MC put the gold in the boxes, and the guys started lifting it. After that, he decided to take a look. He noticed a piece of metal nearby and touched it, realizing it was a durable material, like a special alloy. He decided to study it and took it, but suddenly some mutant appeared. It grabbed him with its teeth and he exclaimed in surprise, "Is it trying to eat him? Who does it think it is?" Even though it is longer and larger than him, it surpasses it in strength and defense. He quickly dealt with this giant, which turned out to be surprisingly tasty, and picking up the piece of metal, set off. A couple of hours later, he returned to his body and approached the huge stones on the beach and thought that the reefs, subjected to erosion, had become incredibly hard. A deserted night beach is the perfect place to test your strength. The force works in both directions, but his bone density exceeds that of a human, and he absorbs most of the impact force. He punched the stones several times and thought that his body recovered easily, and he felt almost no pain. After evolution, his constitution exceeded 200. He hadn't yet tested his strength in action, but this one definitely weighed at least a ton. With his enhancement and fighting technique, he could easily punch through a person. He punched again, but this time several times harder. After a while, he decided to finish training and lay down to rest, thinking that the punching bag at home wasn't strong enough, and he definitely couldn't train in the gym. If someone recorded him on video and posted it online, he would have a lot of problems later. He would only attract unnecessary public attention. Only here could he train in peace. He looked at his hands and thought that he was recovering so quickly. All the scratches had healed within a minute, and at that very moment, a marine iguana swam up to him, holding that very oar in its teeth. He examined it, thinking that at first glance there was nothing special about it. He tried to lift it, and it was very difficult. It definitely weighed at least 90 kilograms, heavy, but such a fragile stone, even a lizard's claws tried to scratch it. It would be a good material for a weapon, but with his skills, he was unlikely to be able to create it now. For now, he will focus on the gold found today. After a while, he went to meet his subordinate and asked where it was. He happily answered him that it was on the ship. They had succeeded. They went to the captain's cabin where the gold was, and the man noted in surprise that he had never seen so many gold bars. Chenchu carefully examined one of them and said that they had no markings, which meant they were minted differently. They would not be able to sell them. That same day, he went to a pawn shop in the city center and asked if they accepted gold there. The girl confirmed it and asked if he was wearing earrings or a necklace. He showed her a whole bag filled with gold and said that he wanted to sell it. She became a little nervous from so much gold and noted that there was quite a lot of it, after which she asked him to follow her. She would introduce him to the owner. The owner of this pawn shop happily greeted him and shook his hand, asking how much gold he wanted to sell. MC responded by pointing to his bag and said that he wanted to sell it all. The man told him that they needed time to check the gold for authenticity, so he should wait a little. While they were checking, he sat on a chair nearby and looked at his phone. Finally, the pawn shop owner approached him and said that the total weight of the bars was 11,250 grams. They could offer him 400 yuan per gram. Chenchu agreed to this option, after which 4.5 million yuan was transferred to his account. He got into the car and hit the road, thinking that people his age were still in university, and he had made millions in an instant. It was simply unbelievable. First, he decided to buy a new car, since driving on bad roads was very unpleasant for him. He went to a luxury car dealership with his subordinate, and while the consultant was telling them about the car, a couple came inside. MC glanced at them. There was his ex-girlfriend. He had spent an eternity to someone's face. He couldn't even pay for his own studies, so he had nothing to do. She clung to her current boyfriend and said that they shouldn't waste their time on him. They could go look at a car instead. She walked up to a luxurious red convertible and told her boyfriend that she wanted this car, and he eyed and thought, is he ready to pay for such a car? But it's expensive. Noticing her doubts, her boyfriend hugged her and said that he was just bluffing. He didn't think he had money. She agreed with him and said that for weeks he couldn't afford anything except cheap noodles. They approached him, and the guy asked, a poor student is buying himself a premium car. Seriously? He should stop putting on a show in front of them. The payment won't go through anyway. The man angrily said that it was none of his business. If the payment goes through, then what will he do? He replied that if the payment goes through, he will call him daddy, and if not, then he will call him. The man agreed to this bet, and his boss's ex-girlfriend, meanwhile, thought that he was acting as if he was capable of buying anything. She said he was just bluffing, but their doubts were dispelled by a consultant who approached Chenchu and handed him the car keys, congratulating him on his purchase. What they saw shocked everyone. The guy didn't expect to have so much money, and the girl was very surprised that he became rich. The man approached this impudent guy and grabbed him by the clothes, saying that now he would have to call his boss daddy. But the MC told him not to waste time on these people and left, and his subordinate finally told them that his boss was kind to them, let them appreciate it. If he were in his place, he would have beaten their faces long ago. Watching her ex-boyfriend get into such an expensive car, the girl became agitated and then ran to him and asked him to listen, but he had already left. The car dealership employees meanwhile began to discuss her, and the girl said that she thought she had found herself a rich guy, but in fact, she had missed a real chance for a better life. Her colleague agreed with her. That's the nature of people. They only regret something when they lose it. After that, MC went to the best restaurant in town to celebrate his purchase. The restaurant staff greeted him with respect, then seated him at a huge table, and the waitress approached him with a menu, asking what he would like to order. He glanced at the menu and said he wanted Boston lobster and king crab. He ordered several more expensive dishes, and while he was enjoying the food, he was courted from all sides by beautiful girls in lingerie. Literally beaming with happiness, he thought that after a bunch of dishes eaten by an iguana, it was his time to enjoy this. He took out his phone and checked the study chat. Their teacher wrote that classes would start in a week, and he remembered that he was actually still studying. He decided to check his status window. At the moment, his constitution had reached 327, and his spirit was 49. His skill experience had averaged 400. The marine iguana currently had 260 evolution points out of 5,000. He leaned back on the couch and thought that there wasn't much time left, so he needed to earn evolution points quickly. The swordfish is the fastest of all. It can reach speeds of up to 60 miles per hour or 90 kilometers per hour, but it's even faster. MC's pet struck the creature and thought that once it had eaten its fill, it would continue its treasure hunt. The system window reported that the evolution points were increased by 10 points. Now it could determine the creature's surroundings at distances of tens of kilometers. But after studying the seabed, it didn't find a single sunken ship. Several days of fruitless searching passed. I wonder if there are any secret supernatural organizations under government control? In any case, he should be more careful. After a while, MC stood near the elite office and thought, after the company had eaten, John hadn't visited it even once. This is the busiest area in the city, and the location chosen for the office is not bad. Inside the building, the secretary said, he has arrived. Jianshu turned to Xiaoninger and ordered everyone to be summoned to the boss's office. She replied, yes. After a while, Jianshu pointed to the MC and said, this is their new boss, Mr. Chen. The employees greeted him. The girls looked at him with admiration and thought, he's so young and already the boss. What a handsome man he is. Jianshu said, boss, and this is Ning Naixing, their receptionist. She said, good afternoon. Sulen entered the office and handed over a cup of coffee. She said, here's his coffee. Jianshu pointed to her and introduced her. This is his personal assistant, Sulen. Chenchu said that she could leave the cup here. He thought about it. Surprisingly, the company had a good reputation. The monthly maintenance of this costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. He looked towards Jianshu and someone was fighting monsters and thinking, is this a barracuda? But they are only 2 meters long, and this little fish is 4 or 5. It's so fast. If not for the creature's external force field, it might have suffered. The number of ferocious mutated fish in the ocean is growing. This fish is clearly not like the others. The system window reported that his clone received 90 evolution points, constitution points, plus 9 points. MC thought, this is clearly different from the others. His muscles and bones have become stronger, and the strength is tenfold. And asked, Is she going to hit on him already? The girl turned around and said, there she goes again. Suddenly a voice rang out. Aren't they finished yet? Sulen screamed. Boss, there's not much left. Chenchu adjusted his shirt sleeves and thought, with his him. The waitress announced the bill was 4888, and MC said it was paid by card. Ning Naixing looked happily at the food and wondered who his parents were. Sulen thought, the boss is throwing money around left and right. The girl thought, he clearly has a bright future ahead. Chenchu looked at them and said that he would still have things to do in the evening, but after dinner, he would drive them. The guy sitting next to him said he wished he knew her better. Sulen approached Chenchu and asked him to sign here. The guy's eyes widened in surprise and thought, so this is her boss? He's eating. The guy thought in surprise, he's some kind of mountain of muscles. It's even scary. Sometime later in the conference room, Chenchu said that everyone should carefully consider every step of the strategy, and then they will be promoted. As long as the company's productivity grows, they will receive nice bonuses. At that moment, a voice came from his phone. Chenchu, today is the last day before applying to the university. Only he was left. He took the phone in his hand and said, he thinks he has to go. He has urgent matters at the university. There is not much work today. They can leave early. While he's gone, Su will handle all corporate affairs. Ning Naixing asked in surprise, so the boss is still studying? The girl said, that's surprising, and she thought he was a rich heir. An MC drove up to the university campus and voices were heard. What? Isn't that Chenchu? Where did he get such an expensive car? It costs more than 2 million. A message immediately appeared on the university forum that on the last day of registration, a rich, tall and handsome guy in an expensive car appeared out of nowhere. Messages poured in the comments. All three were killed within a minute by one person. The policeman said, this is simply insane. Who is capable of such atrocity? Suddenly, a voice came from his radio. Captain, they found another corpse. At this time, MC was sitting in a chair in the office, and Sulen was saying, boss, they don't have new work. Everyone is idle. She asked to give them some assignments. MC laughed and said, boss, it's like fishing on a lake. You have to wait for the fish to bite. Sulen looked at him in confusion, wondering if he thought they'd go bankrupt at this rate. What about fulfilling their responsibilities and attracting clients? Suddenly, a shout rang out, and Ning Naixing, the boss, appeared behind the glass door. They wanted to see him. Apparently, they wanted to discuss the terms of the deal. Sulen's eyes widened in surprise, wondering if this was really the fish in question. Wang Tian entered the office and, looking around, asked where Zhang was. Chenchu replied that he and his men were now under his command. Wang Tian laughed and said that was quite impressive. His name was Wang Tian. MC pointed to the side and said, Boss Wang then. He asked him to sit down, so they could discuss all the matters of interest. They sat down in chairs and Sulen said she would make them some tea. Chenchu told her to hurry up. Wang Tian turned to MC and said, friend, he has a sunken ship here. It's worth at least tens of millions. What do you think? Chenchu asked. As soon as they get down to it, will Boss Wang decide to walk away with all the wealth he's acquired? Wang Tian sat in a chair as if he were lying on a bed and said, of course not. He takes 70% and he takes 30%. That's how it works in foreign companies. MC replied, that's where you should approach them. Wang Tian was initially silent after hearing this answer, and then asked, okay, then what will he offer? Chenchu replied, 50-50%, no other way. Wang Tian frowned and thought, these days the law is strict. Perhaps this is his only chance. He stood up and turned around, asking, is he sure he can even raise the ship? Chenchu spread his hands and replied, of course. He has his own methods. He could go with them and see for himself. Wang Tian shook MC's hand and said, okay, 50-50. He was pleased to work with him. Chenchu replied that the feeling was mutual. At that moment, the policeman was looking at photos on his laptop, thinking about the huge claw marks. But who could have caused this? Was this some kind of anomaly? He sat down and typed a message into the internal confidential messenger. It was written, a mass murder of 4 people at sea was reported. Perhaps it was a beast. Someone replied that it had been taken into consideration and that professionals would handle the investigation. After a while, they were unloading steel columns and Sulen asked, boss, what does he need this column for? MC smiled and replied, it stabilizes water currents and deters underwater creatures. Sulen thought even she didn't know about this. Chenchu looked at his phone screen and thought, this is just how money is leaking out. He should cut back on expenses. After a while, MC's car pulled up near the apartment and Sulen thanked him for the ride and asked if he wanted to go over for a drink of water. Chenchu replied, no, he had other things to do. Sulen replied, yes, of course. She watched him go and thought, well, who made her talk? She said something stupid. Inviting him over wasn't the best excuse. MC was driving, thinking about how he'd accidentally broken his chopsticks at dinner. He'll have to practice controlling his strength some more. After a while, MC practiced hitting rocks and thought he needs to hone his skills further. Now he can sense everything happening around him within a 30-meter radius. He can even feel the slightest breath of wind and the flapping of a wing as a creature flies past. 3 days later, the system window reported that his evolution points were up 210 and his physical points were up 21. MC clone attacked the monster and thought, here comes the mutated fish with red eyes. Wang's ship is already nearby. MC called and said that his people have already arrived. When will they start? Wang Tian said, he's quick. He still has some preparations to make. He'll be done by evening. Chenchu replied, okay. He thought for a moment. After much training, he gained another 15 points to his aura, and with that, his strength had increased. After a while, Wang Tian called MC and said, friend, he can't see his guys. Chenchu replied, they're already underwater. Let him tell where he is now. Wang Tian screamed, this is incredible. 200 meters to the left of his ship. The ship is somewhere at a depth of 700 to 800 meters. MC Clone swam underwater and thought, with his build, the pressure underwater isn't even noticeable. He approached the cave and thought, there's nothing here. Chenchu informed Wang Tian that there's nothing at this depth. Wang Tian grinned and asked, did he check that quickly? He paused. Such a large area in 20 minutes? But how? His assistant approached him and said, boss, the location hasn't changed. They'll try moving a kilometer to the east. Wang Tian told him to listen and asked him to check a kilometer to the east. The MC clone moved further and further, entering a crevice. It used radar, then thought, got it. After a while, boxes were pulled out of the water, and the men shouted, hold on tight. There it is. Wang Tian's assistant opened the suitcase and said, boss, 8 fragments are broken. The other 3 are intact. The estimated value of this is around 30 million. If they sold it privately, they would get another 20 million. Wang Chen pressed the button and asked, did he hear that? MC replied, he'll just take his share of the money and that's it. A couple of days later, Wang Tian arrived at MC and his assistants were holding open suitcases filled with money. He said it came out to 23 million in total. Each person gets 11.5 million. He can recount it if he wants. Chenchu replied, no need, he trusts him. Wang Tian laughed and said, so be it. He will contact him later if he gets any more information. MC looked at the wads of money and thought, the money problem is solved, he said, but he is still weak. He needs to train until bullets and grenades no longer affect him. After a while, Li Tianrui entered MC's office and greeted Mr. Chen. He said that his name is Li Tianrui. He is the Deputy General Director of Tianhong Company and also a friend of Wang. MC greeted him, and Li Tianrui said that he wanted to offer him cooperation. Is that okay? MC replied that he is okay, but it is better to discuss all the details tomorrow. Su Len entered the office and handed over a business card. She said, Mr. Li, this is the boss's business card. Li Tianrui waved and said, great, see you later. He started to leave, and the girl called after him. She didn't expect him to be so young. Ning Naiqing asked, what kind of company is this anyway? The girl replied, she knows their chairman makes tens of billions. He's practically the richest man in the city. He has the same last name as the chairman of Tianhong, so they could very well be related. Ning Naixing said, that's amazing. Su Len watched him go and suggested he just imagine what it would be like to date someone like that. MC grinned and thought, even the son of the richest man is interested in sunken ships. What a coincidence, considering he just caught a large and expensive fish in the sea. Not just one, but 2. After a while, the fish were frozen in ice in the warehouse, and Chenchu thought the fish was worth over $10 million, and the meat didn't taste all that special. He folded his arms across his chest and asked, why all this money? They need to sell it to someone. MC's clone stood next to him and watched. After a while, Chenchu was training when suddenly a voice rang out, boss, young Master Li has been waiting for him for a long time. MC replied that he would be there soon. They met at the company office, and Li Tianrui said, Mr. Chen, he has the exact location of the shipwreck. Chenchu asked why he was interested in sunken ships. He had so much money. Li Tianrui replied that there was no such thing as too much money. MC offered to split the spoils 50-50. Li Tianrui waved his hand and said, no problem. MC thought for a moment. It was obvious that he wasn't chasing the treasure on board. That was very interesting. Chenchu asked, by the way, does he by any chance know anyone who runs a high-class seafood restaurant? He needed to sell a 4-meter bluefin tuna somewhere. Li Tianrui asked in surprise, does he have that too? He said thoughtfully, he has a couple of contacts. He'll invite them to dinner and introduce them. Sometime later at the warehouse, MC asked manager Lin to take his time. The fish wouldn't escape him. The man looked at the fish and said, boss, the fish is excellent quality. We have to take it. Lin said, so they weren't lying. Well, how about the price of 7 million? Chenchu replied, great, he agrees. Su Len looked at him and thought, he sold just 1 fish for that amount. That's incredible. Sometime later, at the Marriott shopping center, MC turned around and said, they had a great catch today. They can splurge. Su Len looked around and thought, but Marriott is a place where the world's leading brands are sold. How easily he spends money. The saleswoman looked at MC and thought, there goes a big spender on the horizon. Sometime later, at the warehouse, Su Len looked at MC and thought, my god, the boss's watch alone is worth 2 million. He bought so many luxury goods, it's clearly more than 1 million yuan. Chenchu put the bags on the floor and the sofa and then said, he thinks he wants to buy a villa. Comfort is important to him. The place should be big and spacious. He needs to find something around 30 million yuan. Su Len replied, okay, she understood. After a while, boats were floating underwater, and the MC clone thought, what a pity it wasn't yet strong enough to tear submarines apart. It looks like there's something strange down there. It's better for the creature to leave. It's not worth the risk. Suddenly, a huge crab appeared behind the clone, and it thought, it's messed with the wrong person. They started fighting, striking each other. The MC clone thought, it's stronger than those little fish. The crab attacked with its huge claw, and the clone thought how powerful the creature is. This is interesting. It struck hard, and then thought that it wouldn't be able to eat the crab in one go. It would have to eat it piece by piece, slowly, savoring each bite. MC looked at his laptop screen and said, from a report on unusual marine phenomena over the past few years. Giant fish? And now crabs? Something is clearly wrong here. He saw a news headline. An M-class nuclear submarine went missing at a depth of 600 meters in the Pacific Ocean. The last report was that it was attacked by an unknown giant sea creature. The next news was that the nuclear submarine collided with an iceberg. All crew members were dead. Chenchu spoke, and all this happened over the course of a couple of years. And, it seems to him, each case is interconnected. At this moment, MC's clone was collecting evolution points, plus 290 points. The basic body characteristics increased by 290 points. MC's clone turned around and thought he got even bigger. After some time, Chenchu was punching a steel structure and thought that his physical condition had improved again. Both bones and muscles. Everything felt completely different. Now even punching iron with his fist didn't hurt, and bullets could only scratch his skin, but not touch him. And with his defense and reaction speed, no one could defeat him. Sometime later, in the Xinhua bookstore, MC looked at books and thought that the world wasn't as simple as he thought. Reading and learning are always useful. Some girls were sitting near him and talking among themselves. One of them, surprised, asked to look at that guy. He was so cute. Another girl told her to go up to him and ask for his contact information. The girl said she was scared. MC looked at the book and thought that one could only advance through training. Sometime later, in the training room, Chenchu was practicing and thinking that Bajiquan and Xinyiquan seemed simple, but training in them was no easy task. At that moment, his phone rang. He answered and heard that they had arrived. MC said that was great. He asked to send him their location. His men would be underwater in half a day. A little later, MC's clone approached the chest of gold, and voices were heard from different directions. Boss Lee, they found gold and some broken porcelain. Boss Chen, did he see a special box? If they can find this, everything else on the destroyed ship is theirs. MC replied, okay, he'll search around. At that moment, the clone was moving underwater and thinking, the gold alone would be worth 20 million. What about this box? It grinned and thought, just a pile of black mud. It's unclear what it wants to do with it. After a while, the man grabbed his head and screamed loudly, it can't be! His elixirs. His elixirs. At this moment, Zhang was examining the murder scene and saying, like the people who died earlier, they were drained of blood, and their muscles were dried out like jerky. But only about 10 hours had passed since their death. They'll wait for the authorities to go down and survey the area. Guangde thought about it. All the victims were bandits, without families, but physically strong. He turned to Xiao Zhang and asked her to file a report later and shut down all the entertainment establishments in the city. Zhang replied, he understood. Later that night, a girl attacked a man, and Guangde shouted, what? Absolutely everything is closed. How come 4 more people managed to die? At this time, MC was training and thinking. After a few days of training, he had made great progress in both Bajiquan and Xinyiquan. The system window reported that he had learned a new martial arts technique. Please let him name it. MC thought about it and said, he'll call it Explosive Fist. This combines the 8 extremes of Bajiquan and the Bengquan half-step from the Xinyi technique. 1 step and explosive fists, like cannonballs. After a while, the man shouted joyfully, he finally caught a fish after chasing a school for so long. But he had to be on his guard. The investment this time was enormous. The fishing net alone was worth millions. He couldn't afford a single misfire. Suddenly an alarm sounded and the man shouted, boss, there's a hole in the center of the net. The fish are escaping. The boss cried out in displeasure, you idiot. He ordered the net to be raised quickly. The man replied, the detector shows nothing, but the net isn't moving, boss. At this moment, the MC clone was thinking, dozens can be caught in one bite. This delivery feast is too enjoyable. It's so similar to water that their sonars can't detect the creature at all. It's full. It's time for the clone to go home. The boss saw the torn nets and shouted loudly, why were all his nets torn and the fish gone? What kind of monster or divine creature could have done this? After a while, MC was sitting on the pier when Li Chen recalled him and said, Boss Chen, he's heading back to the city. To prove his gratitude, he will take him to a beautiful place tonight. Chenchu replied, since young Master Li invites him, he will go. In the elegant Mengluo Pavilion, the girl smiled happily and said, welcome to the elegant Mengluo Pavilion. Li spread his arms in different directions and asked, no one has reserved Yunxiao Hall, right? The girl replied, it's always reserved for him, young Master Li. In Yunxiao Hall, girls were everywhere and dancing, and MC thought, it doesn't matter that the king neglects his duties. There are reasons for that. Such places perfectly immerse him in the atmosphere. After enjoying himself, he rode through the forest and wondered, is someone on my tail? Because of this aura, he feels uncomfortable. He has the same feeling as that night when he was chased by a giant lizard, a monster, a ghost. I wonder, it's been a long time since he stretched his legs. Suddenly, a guy appeared to the left of MC and shouted, hey, man, does he want to compete? Chenchu looked at him and with a loud cluck left him far behind. The guy asked, horror, this turn was crazy. Is he trying to kill himself? The girl who was sitting in his car asked, oh my god, is he even a human? MC drove and thought that at this speed, even faster cars can't catch up. But this thing is still nearby. It seems he is not a weakling. After a while, MC stopped on the seashore. He asked to get out. He is not bad. Suddenly, a girl appeared from behind a tree and said, He talks so funny, big brother. She was just swimming in the sea, and someone took her clothes. Can he give her something to put on? MC saw her and quickly rushed towards the girl. He struck her and then widened his eyes in surprise. She transformed into a demon and asked, "Do you need clothes?" Of course it will find something for him right now. What a powerful and rich life force. It wants to eat him. MC screamed in fear. What is she? The demoness replied, she is a human, but a more perfect version. Her name is Yin Xiao. He will taste like hundreds of healthy, energetic people. Chenchu jumped back and swung his fist, saying, this will be enough for him to complete the first stage of evolution. She wants to eat him? They will see if she can deserve it. He struck Yin Xiao and there was a bright explosion, after which it crashed into the ground and said, so fast, it's impossible. MC continued to strike, but only hit the trees because Yin Xiao was hiding behind them. Chenchu thought it can merge with the tree roots and rocks, but every time he attacks the creature's weak points, Yin Xiao's aura weakens. After some time, MC destroyed all the trees and asked, does it merge with its roots? It's a glorious survival skill, but it's such a pity it encountered him. He asked the creature to answer a few questions, and he would give Yin Xiao a quick death. Yin Xiao asked, does it look like someone who's afraid of death? It laughed and said, what a beautiful moonlight. It's such a pity it won't see it again. If the creature had another month, it could complete its shadow transformation. Then even the god of war wouldn't frighten the creature, but instead, it encountered him in an ordinary old town. MC dealt the killing blow, and the system window reported he caught the seducer, gained 10 attribute points. Chenchu asked, seducer? Attribute points, what are they? The system window reported he can use attribute points to enhance skills and weapons or self-improvement. In addition, they can unlock special abilities, lightning, ice, fire, and others. MC thought for a moment. He already had extraordinary powers, and soon the iguana would have them too. After a while, he looked at the clone and happily thought, this is a real Godzilla. In the warehouse, MC typed seducer and awakener into the search engine. Strange, blurred websites appeared on his laptop screen, and then he was informed that there was no up-to-date information for his search. Chenchu stretched and thought, it seems the authorities blocked these details. Oh well, he's too weak now anyway. He'll explore this world again when he gets stronger. He folded his hands behind his head and said, maybe after his strength reaches 10,000 points. The system window asked him to select the element he wanted to enhance. Wind, fire, water, earth, lightning, light, darkness. Currently, his strength is insufficient. Only basic elements can be enhanced. MC shouted loudly, enhance lightning. The system window reported, they spent attribute points to enhance extraordinary abilities. Lightning mastery acquired, spirit points plus 1 point. Chenchu tried creating lightning and asked, fingerprint lightning? He chuckled and said, okay, thanks. Even lightning mastery has experience points. It looks like they can be increased through training, which is not bad. His constitution is 465 points, his spirit is 57 points, and he has mind control. Traits include external aura, beginner, 570 experience points out of 1,000. Aura perception, beginner, 480 experience points out of 1,000. Skills include destructive strike, beginner, 26 experience points out of 500. Cloud jump, intermediate, 412 experience points out of 1,000. Attribute points are 0. Clone, marine iguana. 2 evolutions resulting in a seasoned beast targeting Beast Lord. Evolution points are 3,190 out of 5,000. Skills include observation hockey, weapon hockey. Talents include water fusion and lightning mastery. At this moment, MC's clone was fighting the monster and thought, another mutated sea beast, no less terrifying than that giant crab. He had gained 980 evolution points. MC thought, even a giant iguana now has lightning mastery, and it's stronger than him. N City Airport. Guangde asked, are they 2 agents from the Special Assignments Bureau? He was Guangde, sent to meet them. The man extended his hand for a handshake and said, he is Huang Junfeng. He thanks them in advance for their cooperation. The cloaked man said he was Nanggong Jian, the chief investigator for Case 907. He ordered that the body be shown to them. After a while, they arrived at the morgue, and Guangde pointed to the body. He said that this person had died the previous night, and only 1 corpse had been found. 4 days before, 4 people had mysteriously died in 1 night. Huang reached out to the corpse and activated his mana, and Yin Xiao's image appeared. Nanggong said, the aura has disappeared. It's dead. Huang asked, puzzled, what? Dead? At this time, MC was training in the warehouse and thinking, his strength had increased too quickly, and he couldn't control it. He wouldn't dare drop by Ning Naixing's place. He was afraid he'd break her sofa just by sitting on it. He remembered her asking, boss, would you mind coming up for tea? MC replied, no, thanks, he has plans. Chenchu was training and thinking, he can't get close to her. What if he accidentally breaks her bones? The next day, the realtor pointed toward the house and said, Mr. Chen, this is villa number 88. The main building is 560 square meters with a front yard of 70 square meters. There's also a 200-meter backyard and an 80-meter billiard room. The buyer paid in full, including furniture worth over $1 million. The full price, $34 million. MC said $25 million. He'll buy it. Suddenly, he received a call on his phone, followed by a loud scream. Boss, there's a monster here. Let him help. At that moment, the employees of the Special Assignments Bureau were standing on the roof. Wang said, Captain, there's been no suspicious activity since last night. The seducer is indeed dead. But that's strange. It was in a semi-ethereal state. A mere mortal can't handle such a creature. Captain, should they stay and investigate, they can observe the bustle in this city. Nanggong ordered him to use the time to train. Otherwise, when when the apocalypse comes, he'll just become cannon fodder. Wang asked, apocalypse? Impossible. Nangong replied, the professor predicts that the next cosmic tremor will be 10 times stronger than the last one 20 years ago. The most important thing now is to improve their capabilities in anticipation of that day. This is the only way they can repay the country for caring for them. The iguana approached the chest, and Chenchu thought, he finally found something worthwhile, but he stirred up too much sand and broke a lot of porcelain. It's his fault. MC looked at the screen of his phone and thought, he found gold. One piece of Song Dynasty porcelain is worth at least several million, maybe even tens of millions. It's a pity that he broke so much due to carelessness. It could have been worth hundreds of millions. Suddenly a girl screamed from the side, what is he grabbing? The man asked again, is he grabbing? Girl, was she dreaming something? He ordered not to blame him, but since she said so, maybe he really did grab onto something? The guy turned around and screamed, how can he be so shameless? He saw it with his own eyes. The man asked again, so what? If it bothers him, let him try to hit him. MC stood up and said, interesting. He had never seen such an arrogant guy like him. The man replied, well, he saw it today. Is he unhappy? Well, let him attack. He grinned and said that he was just another youngster who was overwhelmed. All he could do was talk. The MC slammed his fist into his palm and asked, are there surveillance cameras in their establishment? The girl went to the outlet and pulled the cord out. She said with tears in her eyes, oh no, their cameras were broken. Chenchu grinned, and the man assumed a frightened stance. A moment later, he was already lying on the floor, and the MC was saying, today, someone really wanted to beat him up. How funny. Sometime later in the warehouse, the MC was lying on the bed and thinking, lightning control plus 10 points. Spirit plus 1 point. He thought, a human lifespan doesn't even last a century. It's just a moment in the life of a Sulen to take the time to study accounting. She will manage the company's finances when the time comes. He will pay her at double rate. Sulen smiled and replied, okay, boss. She asked, boss, where is he heading now? He replied that he was going to sell something. After a while, the shopkeeper smiled and said, his surname is Gao, and he is the owner of this antique shop. MC asked, Mr. Gao, will he help him determine how much this plate is worth? Mr. Gao offered to discuss it with the two of them upstairs. He looked closely at the plate and thought, it gives off a salty smell of the sea. It looks like it was just fished out. He said, young man, it's not a fake. But it was part of a set, and he only has one piece of it, which significantly lowers the value. Chenchu replied, yes, it was actually a set. When he found this porcelain bottle, there were many more lying around. Unfortunately, only this one survived. Mr. Gao stood up and said, it's really a pity. If there's only one item, he can only offer 4.5 million. MC reached for the suitcase and said, okay, he'll think about it. Sulen was standing outside drinking coffee. She said, boss, after so many establishments, Mr. Gao looks the most honest. MC asked again, honest? Well, he made the highest offer. Maybe he should just sell it to him? He thought about it, but there was something off in his gaze. He's definitely hiding something. After a while, the man stood with his back to Gao, his hands clasped behind his back. He asked, he says he found some clue on that sunken ship in the living room of a luxury villa. Mr. Gao smiled and asked to look at this porcelain. It has the certification seal they were chasing. Boss, the young man sold him the porcelain. He must know more details. The man ordered to give the information to Fox. He wants to know everything about this guy within half an hour. A few minutes later, a message arrived on Gao's phone, after which he began to read it out. Gao spoke, an ordinary college student who unexpectedly spent 3 million on a luxury car and even went abroad with Li Tianrui, continued to work with his supporters. Boss? Duhong folded his hands together and asked, cooperate? He laughed out loud. Some time ago, Gao asked MC to fill out this form. They need details about him for future deals and auctions. MC replied that he understood. Chenchu lay on the bed and thought, today's deal went unexpectedly smoothly. He can't shake the feeling that Boss Gao is hiding something. He will hope that nothing strange happens. The next day, MC was riding in the elevator and saying, last night passed without incident. Maybe he was just overthinking it. Okay, he'll just go straight to college and handle things. He thought after absorbing the sea python, his strength, muscle density, and everything else were 50 or 60 times that of a normal human. I wonder if he'll be able to withstand gunshots now. He walked out of the elevator when suddenly a guy standing next to him grabbed him. He said, don't move. He ordered him to be quiet and come with him. After some time, MC was sitting in the minibus and asking, excuse me, but where exactly are they taking him? He didn't remember him ever getting in their way. The guy driving replied, they were taking him to meet someone. He ordered him not to try to do anything. After a while, the man ordered him to move. The guy said, boss, they brought him. A man with a huge cut on his face was sitting at the table and saying, horror, let him see what kind of guy this is. They made him wait all night. The MC adjusted his hair and asked, why are they the only ones here, guys? The guy stood behind him and thought, this guy was so scared. But now he is unexpectedly calm. Something is wrong. His calmness is unnerving. The man stood up and asked, why are they just standing there? He ordered them to grab their guns. The MC struck the man, throwing the gun aside. He caught it, and the thug ordered him to put the gun down. The man screamed, didn't he hear? The boss ordered him to drop the gun. He has one gun, and he has two. And by the way, his gun only has one bullet. Boy, they surrounded him. Chenchu asked again, guys, they still don't understand anything? They are the ones surrounded by him. And now they need to tell who is behind them? If they are honest, everything will happen quickly for them. He fired towards the boss, and the guy screamed, boss, he's out of bullets. Let them grab him. The man fired towards the MC, but he quickly grabbed it with his hand. The bandit asked in fear, "What the hell?" The guy screamed, "Oh my god, he caught a bullet! He's a monster, a monster!" MC threw away the bullet and said mockingly, "Now he's so strong." After a while, Chenchu dealt with the bandits and went outside, where he caught another guy. He ordered them to tell him who sent them here. The guy said in fear, it was the director of the Longhua company, Chong Du-hong. He also has a store on the street. MC took the phone from the bandit's hands and called. He asked, "Du-hong, right? He's Chenchu. They'll see each other in the evening." Mr. Gao screamed, 20 million, he's greedy. Du-hong looked at his phone screen and ordered everyone to prepare everything. It's worth a couple dozen lives. They'll see if he can handle it himself. After a while, MC was rushing to the meeting and thought his speed reached 120 meters per second. There were guards everywhere at Du-hong's villa, and Gao asked, "Boss, what do you think? Is this idiot scared?" Du-hong replied, "He single-handedly killed 7 armed men. He's stronger than he looks. Well, he has a dozen men with pistols and 24 loyal subordinates. It's time to get to work." Suddenly, the guards heard some noise and tensed. Someone screamed, "They're activating the backup power. The main bolt on the gate is broken. Same with the front door. He's fast." Du-hong gave the order to shoot anyone who enters. I don't care who. At this point, MC had already eliminated many of the guards who were in the corridor. He approached the door and, opening it slightly, an order rang out, "Fire." Chenchu quickly eliminated the guards and headed towards Du-hong. He stretched his hand out in front of him and screamed in fear. "Awakened. 500 million. MC frowned and replied, "Well, it sounds tempting, but he can't leave the 2 of them after he killed everyone else." He suggested talking about the awakened ones. He'd definitely make them have fun. Du-hong looked at him with fear, then said that in 99, they fought for territory with more than a dozen brothers. A man surrounded by fire descended from the sky, and the city instantly turned into a sea of sparks. The next day, a huge lake appeared in that place. The authorities called it the Lake of the Sunken. MC frowned and thought, the awakened people are so strong. It's so lucky. He didn't make a splash back then. Du-hong pointed his pistol at him and ordered him to die. The idiot. Chenchu knocked the pistol out of his hands and thought, everyone nearby has been destroyed. He's so rich that he's become nothing more than an insect in his eyes. Sometime later, Guan Dai stood in Du-hong's villa, and Guan Qing said that a total of 31 bodies were discovered, one of which belonged to the director of the Longhua company. His Doganda is Chenchu. He must be involved in the deaths of the people in the Red Forest as well. He folded his arms and thought there was an unexpected turn of events here. The next attack is inevitable. He was going to give it a chance, but he was too angry. He strayed from the straight and narrow path. After a while, MC was sitting in the warehouse on the pier and saying, the chicken was gone, but traces of oil remained. It seems the one who was here yesterday is extraordinary. The system window reported that he received 67 evolution points. Body stats increased by almost 7 points. The iguana attacked the fish and thought, there is something else below. At a level of 1200 meters below the surface, the clone thought, there is an active volcano here. It is getting difficult to overcome the pressure. MC stood in the warehouse on the pier and watched the man who came. He thought, he can't escape. He rushed towards the man and struck, and after said that there is nothing left, he is gone. What kind of power is this? A spatial rift, a path to another world, what else could it be? Suddenly the system window reported a notification. His body is breaking under the force of the tensile energy. Notice, his body is strong enough not to be affected. However, the effect will wear off after 5 hours. After some time, the protagonist noticed that this was another world. He looked at the monster standing in the door. The defective demon corpse quickly rushed into battle. MC clenched his hand into a fist and asked, is this a zombie or some other monster? He struck the enemy in the face with great force. The system window notified that the protagonist had killed the defective demon corpse and received 2 stat points. After some time, Chenchu exclaimed, this is Tiger Mountain City. This is the city that Du-hong spoke of that sank into the lake at night. So this city wasn't destroyed by humans. It ended up in another world. It's better to go back first because it's dangerous here. At the same time, Xiao, standing on a tree branch, looked at the departing protagonist. She clenched her teeth in fury at the chicken. After some time, MC exclaimed that he would use these 2 points to improve his electrical powers. The phone search says that Tiger Mountain City sank. 180 people are missing, and 30,000 have been displaced. Chenchu, sitting in a chair, yelled in surprise that more than 30,000 people had disappeared along with the city. If they all became monsters, just imagine how many stat points there are. The protagonist confidently put the phone to his ear and said that it was him. Can Boss Lee help him check where the 30,000 people displaced from Tiger Mountain City are now? 20 years later, Boss Lee replied that he would check tomorrow. The next day, the protagonist ordered a small metal house to be made for him and a huge knife to decorate it. The knife must be 2 meters long, large, durable, and sharp. Boss Lee tensely replied that it might be difficult if there are regulations on knife production. Chenchu, grinning ominously, interrupted him and clarified, Boss Lee thinks someone would care so much about a 60-kilogram knife that it would start running around and spreading chaos? The protagonist put his hand to his chin and thought that demon corpses were strange creatures after all. He could get infected. Besides a metal house and a knife, he needed armor. Sometime later at the Haishian Hotel, the manager of the Haishin Hotel, holding a glass of wine, said that there was so much conflicting information about the survivors in Tiger Mountain City. The authorities say the case is resolved, but he checked and there is nothing about it. MC, sitting in the car, confidently noted that, as he thought, more than 30,000 people were also buried. Chenchu thought that was not bad. He caught more than 40 today. He still lacks 300 evolution points to evolve for the third time. Sometime later at the villa, the assistant introduced the owner of the villa, Miss Lin Chingi. She remarked that the protagonist has good taste. MC confidently raised his hand and said, "Here is the money. They can start after she checks it." Chingi clarified, "Is it 20 million in cash?" After some time, at 1,500 meters below the surface, the system window notifies that 29 evolution points have been added. The protagonist has reached the maximum possible points at this stage. Does he want to evolve? MC confidently agreed. A stream of flame engulfed the iguanas. Chenchu grinned confidently, looking at his hand shrouded in fire. He thought he could hear ants rolling food hundreds of meters away. 300 meters away, a patrolman was complaining about his own life. The protagonist's strength and speed have doubled, but he is as agile as ever. MC has ascended to the earth level. His strength is 1,000, and his spirit has reached 200. The system window notifies that his talent is an affinity with the water element, electric fire breathing, and control of thunder and lightning. Chenchu looked at the system window in surprise and wondered, could it really be electric fire breathing? It's probably because he ate all the mutated tigerfish. He's 40 meters long. Now the protagonist isn't just a huge lizard, but a Godzilla. Inside, MC is too weak. His electric fire is average in strength. There's a large creature below. Once he eats it, he'll be able to smash an aircraft carrier in half in one piece. The iguana opened the enemy's mouth with its paws. Chenchu thought he was very strong. This tigerfish gave him over 2,000 evolution points and a lot of fire energy. This cave must be its territory. The iguana headed towards the huge skull. The protagonist thought it caused him a fear that he couldn't even define. It seems there's something in its head. Power is seething in his body. The system window notifies that MC has found an ancient factor. Does he want to absorb it? Chenchu instantly agreed. The system window notifies that the protagonist has absorbed the ancient factor and is undergoing an unusual evolution. MC will receive the power of an ancient animal, the Scarlet Flame. Absorbing the energy of the Scarlet Flame, the protagonist opened his mouth and spewed a powerful stream of flame into the ground. He looked at the smoke and thought, what kind of terrifying power is this? One shot of energy and the island disappeared. After some time in the warehouse, MC confidently lifted the sword and exclaimed that it weighed 120 kilograms, a very good weight. He will call it the Heavenly Sword. The titanic alloy armor is also not bad. It is very comfortable. Chenchu turned his head to the side and thought that after he evolved, he can detect other creatures. He just didn't expect there to be a little girl here. Is she one of the survivors with special powers in Tiger Mountain City? In other words, is she also a monster? After some time, MC looked at the crowd of monsters and exclaimed that it seems the city is more lively at night. The system window notifies that the protagonist has killed a demon corpse and received 5 stat points. Chenchu decisively attacked the enemy and decided to strengthen the Heavenly Sword. The system window notifies that the protagonist needs to select the aspect they want to strengthen: durability, sharpness, armor penetration, monster damage, and an elemental enhancement: wind, fire, lightning, electricity, or light. MC raised the sword and exclaimed, 3 points for durability and 2 for sharpness. The monster's body disintegrated in dark smoke. Chenchu turned his head to the side and noted how fast it was. He said that 5 points were needed to enhance armor reflection and the remaining points to increase sword sharpness. The protagonist turned his head to the side and noticed the monsters. He struck them with lightning speed with his sword. The system window notifies that MC has killed the corpses of second-level demons and received 12 attribute points. Chenchu confidently landed on the ground. He noticed the monster preparing to attack. The protagonist thought the enemy was big. It wasn't for nothing that he gained weight and those points. Their fists instantly touched, creating a flash. MC knelt down and thought the enemy was as strong as him, but too slow, so it was uninteresting. Chenchu jumped up and swung his sword, striking the monster. The system window notified that the protagonist had killed the corpse of a level 5 armored demon and received 100 attribute points. MC unlocked the demon's armor piece. He could use 10 attribute points to assemble it. Chenchu exclaimed that it was no wonder the enemy was so strong. The monster was level 5. Which explained why he had to hit it more than 10 times to kill it. The protagonist still lacked movement. Xiao screamed for MC to run. Chenchu noticed her and thought she was the girl who told him to run. It doesn't look like she has any evil intentions. The protagonist put his hand on her head and introduced himself, saying that she was now his little sister, so he would take care of her. The MC asked her to go and specified that he would take her to the city and buy her some new beautiful clothes. After some time, Chenchu, sitting behind the wheel of the car, asked if she knew what that dark river was in this flooded region. Xiao replied that it was a black tide. She didn't know what was there, but it was dangerous. After some time, Xiao looked down at the new dress. The protagonist pointed to the table and said that the food was here. He offered Xiao something to eat. Chenchu, eating a chicken leg, thought that during the battle he was completely covered, which suppressed his scarlet flame. Then the protagonist could unleash a burst of power that would definitely kill everyone. 80 stat points remained. He used them to strengthen his armor. The MC passed the intermediate level and is now at least 3 times stronger. Sometime later, at Ning University, students are sitting in a room. A student raised his hand and exclaimed that the place where they were training looked at least like a lieutenant's place. A comrade clarified, "A second lieutenant?" The girl exclaimed that the comrade meant they had attracted the attention of the secret department. A man entered the room and said that the secret department had moved to the city. Once the training was over, successful participants would become lieutenants, but there would be many dangers. Will they participate, or do they want to surrender? The students confidently raised their hands and exclaimed that they would participate. Meanwhile, in the warehouse, the protagonist punches a pole. MC noticed that his body was causing the power of scarlet flames to gather within him and burst out. This will be his Oko move. This strike is at least 150 tons strong. Chenchu would call this move Annihilating Flame. He sat down on the floor tiredly and exclaimed that 100 strikes should be more than enough. If he encountered this demon corpse again, he would kill it with 3 strikes. Sometime later, on the Ning University campus, the girl looked at MC and exclaimed that he was very handsome. The guy calmly remarked that the car was expensive. The protagonist must have been born into a wealthy family. The student clarified, "Did the protagonist excite her so much?" The girl replied that it was because a month ago he saved Ruoya from 4 kidnappers. The comrade sternly asked, "This guy saved someone from 4 kidnappers?" The student clarified that they were just desperate guys. The girl admiringly said that MC was very strong. At the same time, Chenchu is sitting on a bench with Xiao. The protagonist subconsciously thought that this is a yacht filled with bandits from the country of Kangaroo. That's why it is so small. It seems like a good place to test his strength. The yacht workers yelled that the sonar detected a large, rapidly approaching life form 100 meters below. "It's coming this way and fast. Oh no, it's going to crash into them." The yacht shook, and a worker exclaimed in fear that 2 cabins at the stern of the ship were damaged and leaking water. The captain ordered to close the valves and stop the water inflow. "We need to turn on multi-beam bathymetry, set a destination, and survey the surrounding area." The assistant looked at the monitor and yelled that this huge creature was about 40 meters long. "It's even bigger than a whale." The captain asked how something could be so big. "Even a blue whale is only 30 meters long." He ordered to close the rear hatches and swim in. The assistant said that the water inflow had stopped. "It's still attacking." The captain ordered to fire torpedoes. "We need to turn on the turbines to maximum power and surface as quickly as possible." The protagonist, floating in the water, looked at the yacht and thought it was moving. It reached a speed of 200 kilometers per hour. The torpedoes won't be able to hit. The show is just beginning. The yacht swam rapidly, and MC grabbed it with his paws. A powerful explosion thundered. Chenchu thought that their explosions were not a good sign after all. If he gets hit, he will definitely be injured. It looks like he needs to become even stronger. Sometime later at the party, the boy exclaimed with admiration that this new girl is one of the 4 new students. She dances as dexterously as a bird. The protagonist wondered in surprise, "Is it her?" Xiao happily said that she was very beautiful. Qian lifted her dress with her hand after finishing her performance. The president, Wei Wei, holding a bouquet of flowers, said that he fell in love with her at first sight. He asked Qian to be his girlfriend. The audience screamed, "What is he talking about? If the president is free, he must leave the stage. Such behavior is too old." Qian sheepishly replied that her audience would not allow her to agree. She doesn't like Wei anyway. After some time, Qian looked at the protagonist and asked if he still remembered her. Last month, the MC called the police and saved a girl under spirit joy powder. Chenchu replied that he thought he remembered. "What happened?" Qian smiled sheepishly. The protagonist scratched his head and clarified that if nothing happened, he would go. He said goodbye to her. Qian looked away and exclaimed that this car is at least 2 million, and he wears new sneakers for at least 30,000. He is the personification of a man born into a rich family. Not like this way. After some time, the protagonist is standing in the forest. He confidently said that based on what Xiao said, a dark tide is coming, and he needs to find a cave. Everything on this earth will disappear. This cave is 30 meters deep and 4 or 5 meters high. The system window notifies that the protagonist has killed a second-level demon corpse with mutated bone spears and received 20 attribute points. MC sternly asked, "Did the demon corpse develop the energy to create flames?" He turned to the system and inquired if he could increase his clothing's resistance to demon attacks. The system window notifies that the protagonist has used 10 attribute points. His armor has been enhanced with demon materials and raised to an unusual level. Chenchu knelt before the monster's corpse and noted that this is unusual demonic armor. It makes him invulnerable to ordinary flames. Meanwhile, somewhere underwater, the protagonist, looking at the mountains, thought that there are few deep-sea fish in the Pacific Ocean. It's hard to find mutated ones. In that case, he should hunt at fish farms. More than 21 fish should be enough for half a day. MC raised his sword in front of him, and after blocking the blow, thought it was very fast, faster than the speed of sound. The monster leaped toward the protagonist and yelled that it was fresh meat. Chenchu thought this demon corpse was unexpectedly skilled with a sword. When the opponent holds the blade, his hand trembled twice, changing the sword's trajectory. The protagonist decisively exclaimed that he got it. It was time to end this. He rushed toward the opponent with great speed, cutting through the air. The eye of the creature on the monster's chest sparkled. The creature puffed out its cheeks and spewed a stream of flame from its mouth. Chenchu raised his sword and used destroying fire. The creature in the monster's chest was terrified. The protagonist quickly jumped up and slashed the opponent with the weapon. The system window notified that MC had killed the burning corpse of a level 5 demon and received 100 attribute points. The core element of thermonuclear fusion was discovered. Chenchu can spend 10 attribute points to obtain it. The protagonist calmly slung the sword over his shoulder and agreed to receive it. The system window notified that MC's weapon, the heavenly sword, had been enhanced with demonic materials. It had been elevated to an extraordinary level. Chenchu swung his sword, creating fiery lightning. He happily noted that he could combine the power of fire and lightning to create energy bolts from the sword. Sometime later, on the other side of the city, the protagonist, sitting among the leaves, looked at the monster. He wondered, a demon corpse mutated to look like a spider? The forest was so quiet that it looked ominous. First, he'll return. Sometime later, in the warehouse, Xiao said she would close the door for her elder brother. MC was greatly surprised and wondered, Xiao could close the formless door? This meant it had power over space and was more mysterious than he thought. It also worked when closed. At least the remaining demon corpses wouldn't crawl out while he was gone. The system window notifies that an opportunity to improve the warehouse space has been detected. 10 attribute points equal 1 square meter. The protagonist must confirm if he wants to do this. MC instantly agreed. He picked up the sword and said that this was exactly what he needed. He was about to complain that carrying it everywhere was becoming inconvenient. And then the program gave him space in the warehouse. MC took control of the gecko and thought that in just 3 hours, its body had grown 5 or 6 meters, and Chenchu received more than 500 evolution points. The fish raised by humans tasted very good, as he expected. The guy shone a flashlight on the fish that surfaced from the ocean and turned to Shan Tianjun. He asked his comrade to look at it, and asked what happened to the tuna. Shan remarked that it was strange, because there was enough oxygen. The guy noticed blood near the tuna and yelled that something had happened to the fish. A huge iguana tail pierced the yacht, and the people flew up and screamed. Sometime later, at the villa, Chenchu noticed that he had over 100 attribute points left. He needed to increase something. The system window notified that the protagonist had used 40 points and increased his chi sense. 400 experience points were added. The protagonist had surpassed the intermediate level. MC had used 60 attribute points and increased his striking power. 600 experience points were added. Chenchu had surpassed the lunar step. The protagonist closed his eyes and thought that his chi sense had increased from 100 meters to 500, and the lunar step allows him to remain in the air for a while. Sometime later, on the news, the anchor said that a strange black fog had appeared in the city. It covered hundreds of kilometers of the city and had already caused the disappearance of more than 50 people. MC tensed up and thought that it looked like a black tide in Tiger Mountain City. It seemed that peace in the world would no longer exist. Sometime later, at sea on Aodin Island, an assistant turned to Shan Benjin and inquired about the progress of Professor Kant's research. Benjin replied that the professor had obtained a special substance from the bodies of giant animals and even discovered a method for animal regeneration. The assistant exclaimed that this meant he could now create extraordinary people. Benjin smiled and noted that, what's more, they could control even the largest animals. After a while, Benjin turned to the professor and said that a miniature nuclear power plant had arrived. Kant clarified that she had almost reached her destination. They looked at the huge monster with a blade in its body. The lab worker exclaimed that the installation was complete. They connected to transfer the core energy. Kant, smiling, said that the core energy had transferred to the beast's body. The animal had recovered. It was smart enough to know that the metal collar would kill it. Now, it must follow instructions. The professor's assistant, Sugimoto, smiled and exclaimed that the professor was smarter than the scientist. The beast opened its mouth slightly, and Kant, with a mad grin, exclaimed that it worked. The beast will wake up soon. The protagonist in the iguana's body thought that these people were trying to resuscitate the giant animal. They must die. He quickly moved from his place. Kant looked at MC and yelled that there was another one. He ordered his assistants to stop it, otherwise everyone would die. We need to shoot it. Kant called out to Sugimoto and ordered them to go to the submarine. After a while, the guards fired machine guns. Smoke enveloped the protagonist's body. Sugimoto looked at MC with fear. Chenchu leaned down and looked towards the smoke. The guard yelled worriedly that it was a 24mm armor-piercing shell and exploding bullets. A comrade added that these weapons are used in civil wars. The protagonist thought, this is all people are capable of. It spewed a stream of flame from its mouth towards the people. He noticed the professor boarding the submarine and wondered if they were running away. A powerful explosion thundered in the distance. The beast let out a loud scream. MC thought it was truly reanimated. What a terrifying aura. Chenchu opened its mouth and spewed a stream of energy flame from it. The beast, enveloped in fire, screamed in pain and exclaimed that it had just woken up. It was not strong enough. The system window notifies the protagonist that they've found a corrupted ancient mind. Should they absorb it? MC thought it didn't matter. He'd do it. Meanwhile, in the cafe, the system window notifies them that the protagonist's clone has rested. 5 evolution points have been added, and their power has increased by 0.5. MC, sitting on the couch, wondered if he could get stronger from resting after absorbing this corrupted mind. Xiao, happily eating a sandwich, exclaimed that it was delicious. A message arrived on the protagonist's phone. Sichu wrote, "Is the protagonist free tomorrow? Maybe they could grab a bite together." Chenchu agreed and wrote that he'd pick her up at 11. Sometime later, inside the teleportation door, the protagonist, dodging enemy attacks, thought that 3 swords could cut even a tank into rubble. The system window notifies them that they've killed the corpse of a level 4 demon and received 50 attribute points. Chenchu let out a sigh of relief and said he thought the enemy was at least level 5. The protagonist sensed ultrasounds and thought he sensed them. The worm monster attacked him. MC thought it damaged his extraordinary defense. 50 attribute points to strengthen his armor. The monster rose and looked at the explosion. Chenchu swiftly attacked the shield. He thought he created a wall of energy. The protagonist killed the corpse of a level 5 demon and gained 200 attribute points. MC confidently stood on the ground and used 100 points to improve his chi sense, 10 points to improve his scarlet flame. Chenchu noticed that the temperature of his flame had increased from 3,000 degrees to 10,000. His attack range had also increased to 30 meters. He could even kill a dragonfly with a blow. The system window notified that the external aura had 6,200 experience points. Aura perception had 50 experience points. Protagonist, sitting on the couch, said that the external aura increases his power. He received explosive flame as a close-range strike, scarlet flame, long range, and also chi sense, various demonic weapons, and demon-repelling armor. Now he needs to practice his destructive strike, heavenly leap, and control of electricity and lightning. The next day, people are sitting on the roof of the building. They asked, "Isn't that the school beauty C2? It seems even she can't resist the urge. When did the atmosphere at Ning University become so bad?" C2, leaning against a car, asked, "What are they going to do? Everything will be for her." The protagonist suggested seafood. After some time in the restaurant, MC, looking at the menu, asked for 2 wild flower dragons and 4,000. C2 tensed up and thought that this was more than 70,000. She was only counting on 10,000. This is more than her payment for 3 months of accommodation and allowance. She raised her hand and said that she only took 10,000. Could the gentleman lend her some? C2 will pay it back later. Chenchu replied that it was not necessary. He closed the account, so she should enjoy the food. Sichu smiled and asked, "Did the gentleman open a seafood company?" She heard that the protagonist doesn't often go to school. It's probably because he's so busy with work. Businessmen have such an aura. MC replied that not really. He didn't go to school because he was killing monsters and leveling up. He didn't have time to manage the company. Situ leaned over and clarified, "Was this in the game?" She smiled and thought about what a huge crab it was. Chenchu tensed up and looked away, thinking that if the apocalypse came, he didn't think he'd ever be able to enjoy such food. After a while, in an expensive shop, Situ sheepishly thought that he said that after eating, he would like to go shopping, but she didn't expect the protagonist to go there. 80,000 for food, and after that, another 23,000 spent on clothes. Situ won't be able to buy even his button with 2 months' allowance. MC took her hand and offered to go buy clothes for her. Situ tensed and thought he grabbed her hand. Does he think it's easy with her? After some time, Chenchu handed over the card and said he'll take it all. The seller smiled tensely and thought it was the protagonist. The girl he came with before was very nice, but he found someone even more beautiful in less than a month. Situ happily picked up the bag and thought that MC bought her $30,000 worth of clothes. And this was only their first meeting. Is this really what they call wasting money? Chenchu isn't going to take her to the hotel. What should she do? At the same time, in the hall nearby, the demon looked at the people and they screamed in fear. The protagonist closed his eyes and felt it. He turned his head to the side and clarified that he needed to take care of urgent business. Now MC will send her back to school. Situ was surprised and thought, what does this mean? He has no intentions. Or does he want them to slowly get closer? She must be imagining things. Chenchu tensed up and thought that a rupture in space occurred nearby. Something is definitely wrong. A little later in the hall, the protagonist thought this was the real world, but the poisonous aura still appeared. The monster irritably noticed that MC saw it. It jumped towards the protagonist with fury and yelled for MC to die. Chenchu dealt a powerful blow to the monster. The system window notifies that the protagonist has killed a low-level poisoned monster and received 5 attribute points. MC thought that the enemy was simply poisoned, not demonic like that dark elf. After a while, the bureau captain crossed his arms and said that he wanted to use this poisoned monster to see if his hard work paid off. It turns out that someone killed it before him. The girl noted that it seemed to be a very powerful creature, controlling fire. When did someone capable of controlling fire appear in the city? At the same time, on the news, The anchor said that a large number of spatial rifts appeared today in their world. Unfortunately, it looks like the apocalypse is coming. MC noted that this means the apocalypse of 1999 is coming. Over the past 20 years, more than 500 cities have perished on the battlefield. They paid with their own blood for 20 years of peace. They have entered an era belonging to ordinary people. Any person can become special. Chenchu looked at the phone and thought that he sent this to his grandfather, but it was still not enough. The protagonist must report to the city's special department if he wants more information. In his subconscious, a huge monster attacked the iguana. MC thought that it could make heavy water from seawater, and yet it was useless. He emitted a stream of mana and pierced the monster's head. The protagonist thought that once he ate this giant whale, he would receive at least 10,000 evolution points. Sometime later, in the recreation area of the city's special administration building, a student looking at his phone said that whoever killed that poisoned monster yesterday was good, better than any of them. Hao, lying on the couch, agreed and added that it must be an ordinary awakened citizen. Sichu wondered if it could be him. Even now, she doesn't think she could do what the protagonist did that day. The captain opened the door and said that someone registered an evolved human during the day. Do they want to see it? The students resolutely raised their hands and agreed. After a while, MC confidently clenched his fists. The girl pointed at him and exclaimed that it was the guy who drove up to the school in a really nice car. Sichu exclaimed embarrassedly that it was him. The captain tensed up and thought it was MC. He put his hand on the pole and said that registering the evolution means Chenchu will pass the test. It will determine the protagonist's strength and speed. MC replied that it was no problem. The captain clarified that they use this. It can reflect up to 15,000 kilograms of force. He asked Chenchu to hit with all his might when he said so. Hao asked Zongwen how strong he thought the protagonist was. How many stars? Zongwen replied that MC killed a poisoned monster last night, so he was definitely stronger than them. Maybe 3 stars? Hao said that this meant he had 5,000 kilograms of force in one blow. Zongwen noted that the protagonist seemed quite confident in passing the test. Lin asked, "What's so strange? Their captain had evolved to 5 stars and he only had 10,000. A loud explosion immediately followed. The scoreboard showed the result, 12,186 kilograms. The students shouted that the MC really did have 5 stars, even more. Chenchu thought he had hit too hard. The captain sternly announced that the protagonist had reached the 5-star standard. The MC could earn 50,000 yuan from the city's special administration every month. If Chenchu wanted to join them, he would earn much more. They would promote the protagonist to vice chief, and the MC would receive a title. Does that sound good? Chenchu disagreed and thanked him. He clarified that he always played alone. The captain asked if the MC had killed the poisoned monster yesterday. Chenchu calmly confirmed it. The captain inquired if the protagonist still had the fire ability. MC has great strength, like the awakened ones he saw recently. With Chenchu's talent, he could be taken as a disciple by the god of fighting, Jian, if the protagonist joins the management. MC thought that people also saw this as the end of possibilities. No, his huge lizard must remain a secret, and he has other ways to become stronger. Chenchu raised his hand and, disagreeing, replied that he appreciated the captain's proposal. After a while, a notification from the special department of City N arrived on his phone. The message said that they congratulated the first registered evolved person in City N, Chenchu, a 21-year-old man with 5 evolution stars, extraordinary strength, and bloody fire. The comment said that other places have a maximum of 3 stars, and City N is the best. This is the male god Chenchu from their school. Tianrui put the phone to his ear and asked, "Is it really true that the protagonist has evolved to 5 stars and is in first place?" He asked MC to take care of him. At the same time, Chenchu, sitting on the couch, agreed with him and laughed. The protagonist placed the phone on the table and thought that even classmates he hadn't seen in years had called to congratulate him. Too many calls. So this is what it's like to be a god among humans? After eating the giant whale, the lizard had grown 90 meters long. His strength had grown to 1,800 points. MC's physical strength had also increased from 29 to 70 tons. Chenchu smiled and exclaimed that with his coating, he could even withstand an armor-piercing shell. Compared to other evolved beings, he was at least level 7 or 8. 7 stars should be the highest level an awakened being can reach, and there was still a noticeable gap between these 10th level battle gods. The protagonist sent streams of lightning from his hand and thought that in a peaceful world, even if his strength grew every day, without a worthy opponent, he would have a constant feeling of emptiness. But now, things are different. The apocalypse has arrived, and terrifying monsters have crossed space and time, landing in their world. Now, countless powerful awakened, evolved, and war gods will find themselves on the same field, and the stakes are rising. MC will finally be able to stand alongside these gods. No, he will suppress them. Chenchu will become an even more powerful being. A message arrived on the protagonist's phone, and he paid attention to it. Secretary Ling Yu wrote that the boss had evolved. Everyone started congratulating MC on evolving. Chenchu wrote that they would achieve the same someday. He was just a few days ahead of everyone. Little Carnation wrote that she wants to awaken like her boss. It would be very nice to awaken as an angel, so that she could grow beautiful wings. Ling Yu wrote that it is not the protagonist who decides who to awaken into. A person can also become an animal. MC laughed calmly. He wrote that they should not slack off at work. All the workers wrote that they agreed. Sometime later, in the warehouse, Chenchu confidently clutched the sword in his hand. He calmly noted that they had returned. Xiao said that she had opened the door. The protagonist asked her to wait here and not move, as he would look. Xiao hid behind the door and agreed with him. MC walked through the door. He brought his fist to his mouth, smelling something and noticing that something was wrong. Chenchu looked at the lava-shrouded space and wondered if the door led them to a new location every time they opened it. If they wanted to check the world on the other side, she should keep the door open. MC turned his head to the side and said that even if that were the case, what if an even more terrible monster learned of the door's existence? Chenchu scratched his cheek and thought that the enemy who was chasing him could have learned of the door's location from the place from which he disappeared. The enemy could have sent a monster after him. As soon as the door closes, a new location appears behind it, and he needs to explore it again. Is this a completely randomly generated world? The protagonist confidently noted that this was also not bad. After some time, the system window notified that extremely high temperatures kill most living beings in seconds. His scarlet flames are capable of causing combustion at high temperatures. MC raised his hand and said that this was very pitiful. A warm breeze would even relax him. The system window notified that the protagonist's body was being affected by poisonous substances. The body blocks the effect of the poisonous substance using temperature. MC's invulnerability will last 15 hours. Chenchu said that no matter how strong his body was, it seemed it could not fully withstand the effects of this poison. The protagonist thought he could imagine how those awakened and war gods would remain untouched. They were simply amazingly strong. There was no time to waste. He would see what was in this world. MC closed his eyes and used his ability. Chenchu opened his eyes slightly and said that there was not a single sign of life or even a monster. Completely empty. It's no wonder. Life couldn't have originated in such hell. Then he asked Xiao to open another door. Chenchu, with a terrifying gaze, quickly turned his head to the side. He instantly cut down the monster. The system window notified that it was a level 3 poisonous smoke monster. The protagonist smirked and thought that he hadn't even noticed it. There was something in this world after all. The monster, smiling, quickly raised its fist with the intention of attacking. It hit the shield in front of MC in surprise. Chenchu thought that it wasn't just his feelings. It was completely inanimate. The protagonist confidently raised his hand and said that since it was a terrible monster, he should use thunder, which repels evil spirits, to destroy it. MC shouted with determination that evil must be destroyed. Blue mana enveloped the protagonist's hand. MC created an electric arrow. He threw it towards the enemy with tremendous force. The arrow instantly pierced the monster's body. The system window notified that Chenchu had killed a level 3 monster and received 20 attribute points. The skull bounced off the boulders and fell to the ground. The protagonist asked in surprise, "A level 3 monster?" He couldn't do anything about it now. Besides, the enemy was made of lava, so fire attacks were useless. MC smiled, enveloped his hand in lightning, and said he was just lucky to have electricity. If it weren't for him, the battle would have been much more difficult. The protagonist noticed Xiao's legs. MC quickly turned his head to the side and exclaimed that he had asked her to wait outside the door because it was dangerous here. Xiao responded fearfully, saying she was worried. Chenchu thought there might be danger behind the door too. He patted her head and asked her to stay away from him. Xiao should not come any closer under any circumstances. Xiao instantly disappeared. After a while, MC noticed sound waves coming from afar. He swiftly leaps across the rocks and lava. The protagonist bounced off the rock and flew forward. After a while, MC landed on a boulder. He noticed a glowing inscription on the stone. Chenchu smiled and clarified that it could be called a structure, but it looked more like a confined space or a prison. The aura of a huge monster could be hidden inside. After some time, the dragon, Vandenfeld, Wings of Fire, lies on the ground. The protagonist said that it turns out that the real treasure hidden in this world was a real dragon. He doesn't even want to think about what stats the dragon has. Vandenfeld raised his head and said that foolish people summon him without thinking about their own lives. He sat up and noted that this is his world. The dragon turned to the intruder and clarified that since the protagonist is in front of him, he will be merciful and give him 2 options. First, Vandenfeld will bury MC here. Of course, there won't even be ashes left for the funeral. Second, he will gladly accept a new servant, as long as MC recognizes his strength. Vandenfeld. Chenchu smirked and replied that nothing can be done, but he needs the dragon's bones. Vandenfeld raised his paws in rage. Many monsters crawled out of the lava. The protagonist noticed them and said he thought the poisoned monsters were surprising. How stupid of him. MC decisively asked who agreed to become the dragon's servants and turned into these monsters. Vandenfeld ordered the monsters to kill MC and throw his corpse into the lava river. The monsters leaped toward the protagonist with the intention of attacking. Chenchu froze, noticing them. He moved with lightning speed, leaving behind a stream of lightning. The protagonist quickly attacked the enemies. The monsters exploded, leaving bright flashes in the sky. Vandenfeld asked, "What's wrong? Have his servants really disappeared?" Chenchu confidently said that now he thought the black dragon was an interesting pet. The protagonist turned his head to the side and asked, "How about becoming his servant instead?" The dragon screamed, "Idiot!" Fiery attacks aimed at the protagonist. He adjusted his grip on the sword using zoom and fusion. He then swung his sword and, looking at the dragon, kicked off the ground before charging, wounding the dragon's neck. In response, the demon screamed that it would send him to hell. He concentrated fire in his mouth and then screamed, "Dragon's hellfire!" He opened his mouth, releasing a fiery attack. The protagonist used a body of scarlet fire, a barrier forming around him, protecting him from the flames. He asked, "Is that all?" The dragon repeated the fiery attack again and screamed for him to burn to ashes by the lava. No one in this world could withstand even a second of his hellfire. MC, emerging from the resulting smoke, adjusted his hair and said, "He really thought for a second that he was that strong, and it looks like he's just an overgrown hairdryer." The dragon thought, "What?" The next second, it began to open its mouth to attack, but the protagonist pushed off the ground and flew upward, attacking the dragon's head, but the dragon still unleashed a fiery attack. The protagonist landed nearby and said he possessed extraordinary control over flames and the strength of the monster emperor's arm. This was the best defense against flames. He could simply ignore its heat. The dragon said he was immune to its fire. He sighed, then added, "That's interesting." Then he pointed his head at it and shouted, "See if you can withstand a blow from its teeth." With these words, it opened its mouth wide, bearing sharp fangs and trying to grab the protagonist. But he pushed off the ground and, flipping in midair, jumped onto the dragon's neck, then thrust his sword in and ran forward, stabbing it along the length of his path. After that, he swung his sword again and, landing on the ground nearby, said, "No wonder they call it fiery wings. It can change color to red." The next second, the silhouette of a dragon appeared behind him, and it said, "Resistance is futile. Its moves are known." He learned one small move from it, bloody explosion. At that moment, his body was covered in fiery patterns, and the dragon shouted, "How dare he steal his moves? He must die." The next second, MC swung his sword and then decapitated the dragon. The system reported that he had killed a level 5 demon dragon and received 1,000 attribute points. He said, "Game over, trash." At that moment, Xiaoxi appeared and, crouching on the rocks near the dragon's head, said, "Chu strong, fire dragon is dead." The protagonist spread his arms and said, "So this is the effect of his 4,000 attribute points in physical strength." He was frighteningly strong, but he'd only used 10% of his chi, and naturally, recovery could cover it. He'd call this form a Type 1 bloodburst. He then walked over to the severed head and thought, the dragon's size, the teeth, the flesh, even this lava-like blood, these were unusual materials. This head alone would be worth at least 100 million. There was just one problem. How could he explain where he got the head of a level 5 dragon? If he said he killed it single-handedly, it might give away his strength as being level 6 or even 7. He then extended his hands to Xiaoxi and told her to come down. He thought he'd keep it. Who knows? Maybe it tasted good. The system reported that he'd exchanged 200 attribute points to purchase a vault. The next second, he directed electrical energy at the severed head and saved it. He looked at his hand and thought, 4,000 attribute points to enhance his intuition. He should be able to see between the lines. The system reported, his intuition has been successfully enhanced. He has gained high-level intuition. Monsters' auras cannot be hidden from him. Inanimate objects can also be detected. He thought, 4,000 attribute points to enhance his armor's intimidation. The system reported, his armor's intimidation has been successfully enhanced. He looked at his body, from which the energy emanated, and thought, has he awakened the royal intimidation? It is said that it can make a person tremble with fear, and even the slightest glance can render a person helpless. Then the energy disappeared, and he said it might be useful for harvesting fish. Meanwhile, the fishing boat of Country R. The fishermen shouted joyfully, "There's a bite. We need to pull." They pulled the net with the caught fish onto the shore. One of them said, "So strange. Why so few?" The man folded his arms across his chest and asked, "What difference does it make?" "Alive. Thanks for that." Then, one of the fishermen pointed forward and told them to look at what it was. A bulge appeared in the water, and then it was covered in lightning. The next second, lightning struck that spot, and the fish in the water began to fall from the sky. The fisherman joyfully raised his hands and shouted, "Fish! So many fish!" He had never seen so many fish in his life. At that moment, the dragon closed its mouth, deep in the sea. MC thought, the royal intimidation made the iguana's suppression even stronger. Nothing can move surrounded by this. And then he concentrated energy in his legs and said, he can fly when using fire and electricity at the same time. He thought, people have always strived for the heavens. As long as he combines the power of fire and electricity, he can be free from gravity. With these thoughts, he pushed off the ground and flew swiftly into the sky. As he approached the city, he thought his intuition was telling him that this was an unexplored part of this world, a creature that even the dragon that ruled this world hadn't known about. Incidentally, Firewings was just a magical dragon trapped here. There had to be something more powerful trying to hold him back. He had to go there and see what was there. After some time, he landed in the ruins of a giant kingdom. Walking up the stairs, he saw a wall with drawings and, stretching out his hand, said, "This was a civilization of giant dragons. What did they worship?" He wondered. A dragon god? A real god? Then he looked at the huge door and thought, it feels like there's a giant danger here. but if you're afraid of wolves, don't go into the forest. The next second, he ran forward past the statues. Stopping near a dragon statue, he looked at it and said, I see. Firewings was their little brother. The next second, the system reported that the poisoning in this area had intensified. He is immune to poisoning due to his great strength. After 3 hours, his strength will weaken and he will be affected by the poison. He noticed that he was right. There was something strange in this temple. It hadn't revealed its essence yet, but it could already cause this kind of poisoning. Then he shouted, it must stop hiding. He know it's here. The next second, a powerful surge of energy descended upon him, and the protagonist abruptly stepped back. A four-armed demon stood before him. The monster then pointed its hand at him and said, Eternity. The protagonist was horrified, then held his sword in front of him, dispelling the enemy's attack. He wondered if this exalted could be level 6. No, he must be a level 7 demon. Then, the demon told him to bow down and surrender. The ground beneath the protagonist's feet cracked. He asked, does it want him to kneel? He wanted to die? Then he threw his head back and screamed loudly, enveloping his body in a powerful aura. The next second, his body transformed again, and he declared that he would die for this. The demon looked at him and said, Blood explosion, first form. He aimed sharp shards of stone straight at the protagonist, who, swinging his sword, cut them into small pieces. The next second, he swung his sword again, severing a part of the demon. But then the creature appeared behind him and placed its fingers on the back of his head. He called it Disgusting Ant. The next second, a powerful explosion erupted at the site of the battle, and clouds of smoke filled the area. The demon looked forward in surprise, and MC, covered in flames, shouted that he would end this. The demon began concentrating energy in his hands, and then aimed huge stones at the protagonist, but he easily cut them apart, and then swiftly flew forward, delivering another slash. It slashed the demon's body and several stone columns standing nearby. After that, he plunged his sword into the demon's chest and said, Blood explosion, second form. In response, the creature grabbed his arm and said, Arrogant. Then another explosion occurred, and the protagonist's sword flew into the ground. Emerging from the smoke, he said that his weapon would only slow his attacks. He would deal with him with his own hands. He must approach him. With these words, he swung his fist and charged, but the demon, spreading all 4 of its arms, formed a barrier around itself, defending itself from the protagonist's attack. The protagonist then flew back, and the demon was also sent flying in the opposite direction from the powerful attack, his face covered in cracks. The next second, MC appeared next to him with lightning speed, then grabbed his face with his hand and with a sharp movement slammed his head into the ground, covering it with cracks. Smoke rose again from the battlefield, and the next second, the demon rose into the air and, gesturing with his fingers, said, Trap. The protagonist spun around, and then the ground beneath his feet began to split, chains appearing from various places, wrapping themselves around his body. The system reported that the formation sealing the dragon can collect the energy of a sealed object and use it to strengthen itself. The demon said that the harder he tries, the harder it will be for him to escape the net. The main character looked at him and said, So that's how he caught those ancient dragons. He tried to move his hand and added, It's a shame he's not good enough to seal it, because he's not like those stupid dragons. The next second, the chains broke, he clenched his fists, and then said, He must listen. His name is Chenchu. The demon looked at him in surprise, and then the ground under the protagonist's feet cracked again. He took a few steps forward, while the demon looked ahead in surprise. After that, the protagonist swung his fist and, clenching his teeth, ran to attack, after which he delivered a powerful blow, knocking the creature back. Then he flew closer, and, swinging his fist, delivered another blow. He struck again and again, cutting the demon into several pieces. Its body continued to be covered with cracks. The next second, MC added a strike from above, pinning the demon to the ground. He looked at the gaping hole in the creature's body, and then, smirking, said, He needs its power. With these words, he pulled the heart out of the demon's body. A system window appeared in front of him, stating, Notification. The scarlet flame rose to a glassy scarlet flame. Notification. The lightning rose to a thunderstorm. Notification. He had received a dragon sealing talisman, allowing him to capture creatures below level 6. He overexerted himself, and his strange poison level rose to 99%. At that moment, Xiaoxi ran up to him and said, Chu, the poisoning is dangerous. He looked at her and said, He's been fighting for too long, so the poisoning has worsened. He can't stay here any longer. Without the protection of the sublime, the world of dragons and giants will fall apart. Moments later, there was a small explosion. Xiaoxi, holding her hands out in front of her, ran to the door. The protagonist lay on the rubble. She turned to him and said, The door is closed. A trickle of blood escaped his mouth, and he said, As soon as the door closes, the connection with the other world is lost. Who knows where it will open next? Xiaoxi ran up to him and sat down next to him, extending her hand. She called out to him, and he placed his hand on her head and said he was fine. That was the price one had to pay for strength. He thought, although the blood explosion only seemed like an explosion of pure energy, only someone insanely strong could withstand it. If a normal person used even the first type, their blood would evaporate in an instant, leaving only a desiccated body. If he wanted to reach the third type, he would need to increase his physical strength. With these thoughts in mind, he rose to his feet. Then he took Xiaoxi's hand and said, since the teleportation door had closed, they needed to rest. Meanwhile, in the ruins of a palace in the land of giants, a demon, his body covered in cracks, lay on the ground, and the next second began to rise to his feet. He looked at his bloody hand, then spread his arms out to the sides. At that moment, Seth transmitted over the intercom, "At 35 degrees north, 1,200 kilometers from here, a group of poisoned level 5 monsters. He's requesting artillery support." At that moment, several demons burst from the ground, bearing sharp fangs. This was happening somewhere in the city. Missiles were flying straight at the monsters. Seth, holding the microphone in his hand, said, 6 minutes left until the second wave of shots. He hoped this bunch of monsters wouldn't escape. Tyler looked ahead and said, he should relax. They're eating their own corpses and haven't moved from their spot. He replied that he wanted to know their poison percentage. Then he looked at Mark and called him over. He was looking at the system window and said, 15.5. They need to hold out for another 8 hours. Seth said, that will be enough to drag everything back. Tyler flexed his hand and said, the bodies of 7 level 5 monsters will cost a pretty penny. Even if they're wounded, they're worth a lot. Mark added that they'll need the money to increase their range. If there are 3 of them left, he'll be happy. Seth said, as they say in Country Z, he could consider himself lucky. If they hadn't needed the base's help, any one of these monsters at full health would have covered their needs. Then he smiled and added, it's time to get down to business. They have to give him this monster. Tyler, Mark, they have to get these bodies out of the way. Then he moved on and added that there should be enough for 5 vials of purifying energy. They'll take 3 and sell the rest. 1 vial is worth 200 million on the black market. They'll live like kings for a while. The next second, a demon with several tentacles on its back appeared from the smoke. Seth looked at him and asked in surprise, what is this? Mark, looking at the system window in surprise, shouted, poison level 19, 38, 97, 175, 297, 5 of 31. Why? Before he could finish speaking, a demon tentacle severed his head. Seth, turning around, shouted in fear, they have to run. He ran forward, repeating, they have to run. Behind him, the tentacles of a huge demon attacked Tyler. And then the demon attacked him too. Somewhere in the apocalypse base in Country M, voices were heard, he reports. The apocalypse has occurred, activating the highest level of apocalypse defense, beginning the elimination of all threats to the good of humanity. After some time, MC woke up in his bed, he stretched his arms forward, and after a while he knocked on the door and said, it's time for breakfast, shall she? She left the room, rubbing her sleepy eyes, and then told him to hug her. He sighed, then squatted down to hug her. He asked, what should he do with her? Then he heard the doorbell ring, and Huang Fujian was standing at his door, holding a delivery bag. On her back was the inscription, quick takeaway to satisfy his hunger. She said, Mr. Chen, delivery. He opened the door, holding Xiaoxi in his arms. She handed him the bag and said hello. He looked at her bike and said that it was the first time he'd seen a delivery girl so early, and on a $100,000 motorcycle no less. She leaned over and said that she too had never seen anyone living in an expensive residence ordering delivery every day, especially with a child. He said, lady, she knows him too well. After that, he used his energy, and she dropped the bag from her hands and frightened, said, no, he's from City N, the first evolved human of the new generation, Chenchu. She blushed with embarrassment and added, she finally saw him with her own eyes. Finally, he thought, this girl. Then he noticed that this was strange. What was she getting at? She, unzipping her suit, breathing heavily, said, well, of course, she's here to stalk him. He asked in surprise, what? She turned around and said that she wanted to stalk him. Turning around, she added he should remember her name. Huang Fujian. She lives next door. Well, they'll see each other after the next order. She got on the motorcycle and rode on, shouting at him not to forget to leave a good review. He remained silent and then wondered if he had somehow opened the door incorrectly today. At that moment, Tianri approached him and said, good morning. The protagonist, looking at him, asked, brother, what is he doing here? He smiled and replied, well, just decided to stop by. He wanted to tell him that he'd moved into building 87, right next door. He just bought a villa yesterday and moved in today. He'd chosen this area specifically. If any danger were to arise, it would be close to his house, making it easier for him to ask for help. The protagonist thought he'd expected that displaying his abilities and talent in public would attract the attention of many. But who would have thought that the first to come to him would be someone completely unfamiliar with City N, but such a small fry? Then he smiled awkwardly, scratched the back of his head, and said he was overextending himself. City N had a special investigation bureau. If the poisoning had spread, they would have rushed here as soon as possible. Tianrui extended his hand and asked how they could compare to him. He wasn't from the department, so he didn't have to be responsible for anyone. Then he pointed a finger at him and added, that's why you need to know whose side you're on. The protagonist asked, what was he talking about? He replied that since he still didn't know, after the news he had spread yesterday, most of the houses in the wilderness near that mountain had changed owners. He's so prominent that the price in the entire area has more than tripled, and all the rich people in City N are fighting to move here. They say they want his help, but all they want is his resources. Connections, money, whatever he wants. They won't refuse him until the monsters show up. He should help them too. MC said thoughtfully, resources. Tianri shrugged and said, they're all businessmen. They want to invite him to dinner, so he's here. The protagonist replied, of course course he'll go. He patted his hand, smiled, and said, great, he better keep his word. They'll see each other a little later, at Linchu's best hotel. Yes, he just saw Huang Fujian. Does he know her? The protagonist replied that it wasn't so. She showed up unexpectedly and said she wanted to pursue him. He thought for a moment and then said, she might be a bit overbearing, but she's had everything she wanted since she was young. Since she likes him, he better be careful. Behind her is Huang Futai, the richest man in City N. A notification came through on the phone. Breaking news about sending peace. Country Z used the most powerful equipment, reducing the poisoning level. Public order was restored. According to the news, the village of Wu was attacked by poison monsters. Hundreds were killed. A temple in Country R was poisoned by the body of a woman who was burned alive by monks and reincarnated as a vengeful monster. 20 people were killed. Country Z announced its plans to eliminate the apocalypse 20 years ago and created the first superior resource protection and storage system. This system made the city the safest in the world. Pressure is mounting worldwide. The rich have rushed to Country Z, and many possessed are now at the border. The black market is overflowing with disaster relief contracts. Meanwhile, Ningchen University, Qianqian, sitting at her desk, flipped through her textbook and listening to music. Her classmate turned to her and asked, if the apocalypse has arrived, why is she still wasting so much energy on studying? She put her hands behind her head and, leaning back in her chair, added that she'd thought about working for an international company or becoming a translator after graduation. But the situation is so dire that it's no longer an issue for her. Who knows if people will survive? She still needs to find a high-ranking man and marry him. Then Qian took off her headphones and thought, Chenchu, who awakened with 5 stars, has extraordinary powers of fire control. He's very popular online, even more famous than some celebrities. The number of discussions about him online reaches 2,000 blocks. But besides fans, there are also doubters. Then the girl added, seriously, what's going on between her and that ordinary guy? She smiled and asked, are they sleeping together yet? Qian, blushing with embarrassment, asked what she was talking about. She covered her face with her hand and thought, domineering, talented, and handsome. He is so perfect that no one can compare to him. Chenchu is her boyfriend at Ning University, but does she feel anything for him? At that moment, she received a call from the protagonist on her phone, and still blushing, she said she would go away. Her friends smiled and told her to go. She went out into the hallway and, answering the call, asked if he was looking for her. The protagonist, putting on his jacket, asked if she had time tonight. He made a lunch reservation. She said, of course. He said, okay. Meanwhile, Wangfu Villa. Tai asked if she had seen him. His daughter threw a helmet on the sofa and confirmed it. He asked how he was. She adjusted her hair, tying it into a ponytail, and said that he knows she is watching him and becomes scary when he concentrates on something. It seems that he is capable of being a king. Her father, pouring tea into a cup, laughed and said that her old father's guess was probably true. He is strong. She added that if he wants to buy it for tens of millions, he will not succeed. He said that no matter how it seems to her, Chenchu is just a brat in his 20s. She thinks that he can fool an old man with such business experience as his. She placed her hands on the table in front of him and said that the world has changed. Father, his money may not always be the solution, but strength always is. He said that she had only been there once. She should not tell him that she likes him. She folded her arms across her chest and added that she was not chasing him for his sake or because she wanted to get something from him. He was surprised, and she explained that she simply liked him. He asked in surprise, are you serious? She covered her mouth and said, of course. He was the first man who had made her feel anything in years. Then the father slammed his hand on the table and said, all the high-ranking families from City N and even from Cities X and C have set their sights on her. He knew exactly how they manipulate others. Money, women, power. As long as he had human desires and emotions, he could exploit them. They simply wanted to pressure him, to force him to bow before them and join their ranks. Daughter, she was too naive to fight them. She placed her hands on her waist and said, my aunt said that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. The father remarked that this was true. She should wait. Did she want to learn to cook? He folded his arms across his chest and thought, his daughter, as we know, is a little out of her mind. Now she's fallen in love with a man and has even decided to change for him. Besides, she's really pretty, so she really can win him over. Then she said thoughtfully, she gave up cooking when she almost burned down the old house several times. That won't happen again. He asked, then what is she going to do? She showed the writing on her jacket and said that she will deliver food to him and only him. She used his last name to start a delivery company. Father desperately said, money for a food delivery business. She smiled and said that small space he used to rent a warehouse on the docks, or even this villa, he always orders food for himself, even breakfast. She found someone who took his phone and installed an app. As long as he orders, she will be able to deliver food to him. Then her father clutched his chest and coughing said, delivery, food. What is she doing? She smiled and said contentedly, soon he will be touched by her sincerity. Sometime later, MC was sitting behind the wheel of the car. One of the people present shouted, that's Director Chen's car. It really is. The girl looked at Qian walking toward the car and said, I wish you gave her a ride. Then the protagonist looked at her and told her to get in. She walked up to the car and, smiling, said, of course. Zongwen looked at the car and said, they're trash compared to them. Pan Hao looked at him and said, headmaster, he lets other people's ambitions ruin his own, meaning they've all evolved. so he's confident they'll catch up. He just happened to break past 5 stars first. He then spread his arms wide and added, judging by what the department head said, the 3 of them are the best of the best, selected from among 1 million people in City N. An outsider like Chenchu was just lucky. He then looked at Penguin and asked, is he right? He replied that it was true. They were just as talented as he was, absolutely the same. He blushed with embarrassment and said, this girl is very pretty. Panhao hit him on the head and shouted at him to stay focused. Gritting his teeth, he added, as long as Chenchu acts arrogant, the girls will only look at him. The most important thing now is to become stronger. He replied, he means they shouldn't tell Rin Roya what they just saw. Chenchu was with someone else right now. Panhao put his hand on his shoulder and said that he knew he liked Roya, but she liked Chu. He could fight fairly. Even if he didn't win, he would at least be a real man. But talking about people behind their backs is not heroic. Meanwhile, Qian, turning to the protagonist, said, in 2 weeks, there will be a second apocalypse. If there are a lot of monsters and the Special Missions Bureau can't handle them, will he do anything? The MC turned his gaze to her and asked why she was suddenly asking. She lowered her head and replied, there are a lot of people criticizing him online, calling him a coward. He asked why? Because he didn't join the Special Tasks Bureau? She replied, most likely. They say he didn't join because he's afraid of facing the monsters that will appear in 2 weeks. He said he's the first evolved student in this country. Of course, there are those who won't like him. The crown of glory is truly heavy. She looked at him and said, if monsters powerful enough to upend the world appear, and the Special Tasks Bureau can't handle it, will he? He replied that he would undoubtedly be on the front lines. He didn't join the Bureau because he didn't want bureaucratic red tape to hamper him. Reporting before every action doesn't suit him. She blushed with embarrassment and looking at him thought, yes, someone she likes can't be a coward. Sometime later, in a magnificent hotel, the protagonist walking into the room wished everyone present a good day and introduced himself. Qian, looking at the people present, thought they were billionaires from the richest companies. Then Li Chenghong said that he was glad to finally meet them. Mr. Chen. It seemed his useless son had kept him updated on the situation. MC replied that he knew what they were talking about, so they would get straight to the point. Chenghong said that to ensure their safety during the impending apocalypse, they decided to form a security council and invite him to become its chairman. The protagonist was surprised. A security council? He smiled, spread his arms wide, and said, of course, he will protect them, the old people, and ensure the safety of the villas around the hill from poisoned monsters. And since they are protected, naturally, they will pay a reward of 100 million per month. Qian was surprised and thought, what? 100 million per month? Then the MC said, 100 million sounds pretty good. But that would be the price for protecting all the billionaires in these villas, like the tax for joining the Security Council. He's sure they won't be able to raise that amount with the more than 30 billionaires living here. If they split it up, each family would pay $1 million. He doesn't even know how much they'll charge them for joining. 10 million? 100? It doesn't matter. It looks like a profitable business. Tai folded his arms and asked, is he saying there's not enough money? The protagonist spread his arms out to the sides and replied, in times of peace, they, the rich, stick together. Even if something goes wrong, they solve it with money, and that's why they act arrogant. And now the apocalypse has knocked them off their thrones in an instant. Everyone is equal before the poisoned monsters. There's no difference between a prince and a pauper, and that makes them, who earn millions their entire lives, very unhappy. As for him, he understands them perfectly. Chenhong smiled, raised 2 fingers, and said they were only doing this because a rift had occurred in space a few days ago. The Bureau had to use nuclear weapons to drive away the monsters. Mr. Chen, if he agrees, 200 million. They will give him 200 million. All of them old men want to sleep peacefully, don't they? Old man Tai? He replied, isn't his son in the Special Assignments Bureau? He knows better than anyone how efficient these for-nothings are. If they could be relied upon, they wouldn't be here today. Then he raised 3 fingers and said, 300 million a month, dear chairman. If he nodded Mr. Chen, he will add 100 million from his own pocket. The protagonist picked up a bill and said that the money would become worthless paper. He's afraid that after a few attacks, their money will simply become kindling. With that, he burned the bill in his hands. Chenhong shouted in surprise. What, Mr. Chen? He's saying that after the second attack, money will be worthless in 2 weeks? He looked at his phone screen and added, that can't be right. According to official sources, the coming apocalypse was simply a normal level 1. MC, closing his eyes, asked, haven't they seen the truth yet? The news only showed normally evolving individuals being sent to repel attacks. He said, since he says so, so what? Then the protagonist walked to the window and asked them to think about why even the Special Tasks Bureau couldn't find a 4th level awakened person. They were trying to close the 5 doors of the apocalypse. This wasn't a real battlefield. The officials couldn't even take care of themselves, so why did they think they could help them? Tai slammed his fist on the table and asked, then, what did he want them to offer? He spread his arms wide and said, he doesn't need money, but special mud produced in Kowloon, special medicine from Baitai, and special supplies of Lantian gold. In 3 days, he wants to see the blueprints of the mountain fortress and the completed defensive structures in a month. Chenghong was surprised. What? Blueprints of the mountain fortress? When the villas there became the line of defense. Defense. MC said the villas around the mountain will become the center, and the natural terrain will make defense easier. Even if the entire world faces an apocalypse, people there can live for years, with air, electricity, ample space, clean water and food, medicine. If they fulfill his request, he will lead their security committee and swear to protect them. Then Tai clapped his hands and said, "No wonder he is the strongest man in the country. He is intimidating with his strength, deliberation, and conduct." After some time outside, Tianri said, "That was wonderful. He dealt with them all." The protagonist said, "Everyone wins." Then he added, "By the way, his father has shares in this hotel, so they should go have fun." With these words, he handed the card to the protagonist and said that he would go first and would not interfere. The protagonist, taking the card in his hands, turned around and said, "Darling, there's something he'd like to discuss with her. They can't refuse their brother's kindness, can they?" She blushed with embarrassment and agreed with him. After some time, a luxurious executive room, a soundproof space, it reflects all signals, nothing can get in or out. Qian, still embarrassed, said, "Sir, too fast." He pressed her to his body and told her to become his girlfriend. Then he concentrated energy on the tip of his finger and thought, she's a normal person, so when he controls the energy in her body, he must be extremely careful. After all, he is an extraordinary person with 4,000 or 5,000 units of power. If he's not careful, he will crush her body into cells. The next second, he touched her body. After some time, he covered her with a sheet and thought, very good. Her body has merged with this energy and is slowly changing. There was no poisoning or mutation, so he just needs to wait until tomorrow. Pouring wine into a glass, he thought, he will use the dragon sealing stamp to extract parts of the energy from the absorbed monsters and turn them into seeds that, when transplanted into normal people, will cause them to evolve. Then he sat down on a chair and thought, although it is a little dangerous, he must make Qian evolve too. An hour later, the protagonist, lying on the bed, put his hands behind his head and said, "Each wave of the apocalypse will be stronger than the last. In this atmosphere, there is no way she will be able to graduate from college." She asked, "Sir, what should she do besides study? Run away from monsters?" He replied that she should look within herself for answers. "She wants to become an awakened, right?" she exclaimed in surprise. "Sir, does he mean that she can evolve too?" "Of course, that is her dream." He sat down on a chair and, looking at her, said that he could use the dragon sealing stamp to crystallize some of the monster's power. Once her body absorbed the crystal's energy, she would become as strong as an awakened being. But if she couldn't control this power, not only would she be unable to evolve, but she would also become a monster herself. Did she want to take the risk? She lowered her head and said, "He did it." So she's not afraid at all. She also wanted to become independent to protect her mother, so she would always fight by his side and never be a burden. He said, "Very well, she shouldn't move." This was his first time sealing the stamp, so he could make a mistake. She exclaimed that it was her first time too. After a while, the video said that when the dust settled, a superhero would appear on the scene. He was the embodiment of strength itself, the fearless protector of this city. The 4-star evolved Tianlan. With his shining metal body, he will dispel the darkness and destroy all dangers. His every strike is a step towards freedom. His every appearance strikes fear into the heart of evil. And a real man never turns to look at the explosion behind him, because he knows that his real battle is ahead, and they must cheer for him, applaud him. Each of their voices gives him the strength to move forward. They must witness the legend of Tianlan. Van, pointing at the phone screen, said, "Chu, this is a short video they filmed with the Shanshui City Special Assignments Bureau. They have several 100,000 subscribers on their app, and this is a 5-star bureau manager of Zhanghai City. He looks cool, right? These viral videos can get millions in a split second, and they're so lightweight." The MC looked at her phone screen and asked, "Did they use special effects?" She replied, "Not really. Their app can turn on filters with one tap, which will make his movements look even more powerful. Ultimately, such apps are supposed to help evolved humans present themselves so they can earn the public's trust. That's why they've signed contracts with many special mission agencies and evolved humans. Sir, he's a famous person, and I'd especially like to sign a contract with him, as the government has recognized him as the first evolved human of the new generation. They just need him to show off his power, and they'll promote him, and his popularity will skyrocket. He won't have any trouble finding sponsors. You should watch these sponsored videos." Then, she played a video that said that once they eat the superhuman instant noodles, it will be their only hope in the fight against the apocalypse. They should transform from 996 to 007 in just 3 minutes. Their noodles contain a gene enhancer containing 5 ribonucleotides, potassium sorbate, and 58 other high-quality nutritional supplements, so they will remain energetic even under the dual pressures of the apocalypse and capitalism. He must remember, he's not superhuman. He's just a worker, kidnapped by instant noodles. By wearing these amazing dodgeball sneakers, they will avoid spiraling rent costs during the apocalypse. The sneakers contain energy balls, made from recycled materials, allowing them to forget the monotony of everyday life and their boss's KPIs. Please remember, while the soles of their shoes can break from the effort, their dreams cannot. Van said, "Sir, if he is ready to start a live broadcast on their app, become a popular streamer with millions of fans, they will fulfill any of his demands." He stood up from his chair and said he was not a star. What fans was she talking about? She asked. Does he not know how popular he is now? Why? Even if we go by his delightful handsome face, he will have millions of fans dreaming of becoming his subscribers. As soon as he shows his face in a fan group chat, he can get any girl he wants. In response, he apologized and said he was not interested. Then he went to the window and, turning to the secretary, asked her to take her away. The secretary approached the woman and said, "This way, please." She kept screaming, 100 million a year just for filming commercials. The protagonist continued, "They need to take her away." She screamed, "They need a real hero. Only he can handle this." City M's Superman, the Hulk, can grow to a 5-meter giant ape in an instant, but after transforming, he becomes uncontrollably powerful and impenetrable. He can run hundreds of meters in a second and easily destroys tanks. He is a god to the people of City M. The country's army has a Superman named Yali Shanda. His left hand can become a royal sword. One video with him has been viewed 500 million times. He is called Blade Man, and he is the legendary general of the city. In City F, there is a man with the ability to become flame, and in City D, there is a man who can freeze air. A transformer in City G can stretch like rubber and jump between buildings, and someone who can become invisible. Normal people are naturally afraid and doubtful in the face of the apocalypse. They need a true hero, a hero who can make them feel safe and give them hope. The Hulk of M City, the Yali Shanda of Yi City, they have become symbols of their countries. They need such a symbol too. The protagonist turned slightly and thought it would be nice to increase his scope of control, especially now when he is being criticized online. Then he said that he refuses to stream, but he might agree to filming. She happily asked, "Really?" After a while, he stood on the edge of the building's roof and then swiftly flew down, quadcopters with cameras flying on both sides of him. The video said that he is a light in the darkness, in confusion. He is the embodiment of hope. His sword strikes with precision and grace, and he moves through the air in a deadly dance. A true hero fights not for glory, but for every life on Earth. Chenchu is the first to evolve in the new generation. Fearless, legendary, benevolent protector. Meanwhile, at the N City Special Assignments Bureau, one of those present watching the video shouted, "Damn, is this some kind of apocalypse game that they, the evolved, are supposed to play?" Zongwen said, "So many special effects, it doesn't even look real anymore." Penguin said, "No, there are no special effects. It just looks so exaggerated." He shouted, "Damn." Wei Ming, like the others, looked at his phone and said, "This Chu must be stronger than 5 stars. He has gone beyond evolution, become awakened. It looks like he will be moving further and further away from them." After some time, a distant temple, a believer, stretching his hands forward, said that they welcome the great Tengu. Tengu flew towards them, followed by Izanami. The old man, bowing, said that they welcome the great Izanami. She landed near the portal and asked if they were sure they'd found the babies of that ancient animal. One of the believers said, "My lady, that this gigantic beast appeared near their city R in the sea, but it was first discovered in City M. National law stipulates that the resources of such an animal belong to all of humanity, but priority goes to the discoverer. They could only get 30%. Izanami asked, "What national law? If they killed it and took control of all its resources, they would also gain control over their distribution." Meanwhile, the Bathyscaphe carrying the Poseidon assault team from Country M descended to the depths, and several divers left the Bathyscaphe, diving ever lower. One of them, shining a light on the bottom, said, "There are prints here, huge ones." Then he shouted, "Captain, the skull of a monster whale 20 meters long." They saw a huge skull lying on the seabed. Then he looked at the device on his hand and said, "Radiation, 465 sieverts." His partner agreed. That was obviously the source of the radiation. He swam further and asked, "Did they hear it?" His partner asked, "What did they hear?" He said, "Wait, something's wrong with this thing. 885, 1255, 4593 sieverts. It's still rising. Even if they were near local radioactive waste, it wouldn't have been that high." After that, an underwater dragon approached them. The worker, frightened, asked, "What is that?" Sometime later, at the Marine Entertainment Haunted House, Wei Ming, looking over the report, said, "Someone went missing here yesterday. Why didn't he immediately report it to the police?" The worker replied guiltily that he thought the tourist had simply gotten lost. It hadn't been 24 hours, so he sent people to search the area. He hadn't even thought about it. The next second, Wei Ming slammed the folder shut and said, "He thinks he was afraid it would harm his business and cause losses. Isn't that right? 3 people disappeared tonight, and 1 more yesterday, and the day before. His haunted house swallowed 5 people. This could be a sign of the approaching apocalypse. The Special Assignments Bureau will deal with it." After a while, they entered. Pan Hao, looking at the device, said, "Strange, the sensor has detected poison now. Why did the poisoning start after they entered the haunted house?" Zongwen said, "It looks like they're dealing with a strange monster. Of course, it will collect all the poisoned energy in its area." Hao added, "Was this thematic room on the map the director gave them?" They looked around, and then he looked to the side. The mannequin with a sharp cry fell on him. He stabbed it with his spear, breaking it into several pieces, and screamed in fear. Ning turned around and noticed it was just a prop. What was this acting for? He screamed in fear. Damn it! He thought it was a real ghost. Then their partner looked at the device and said, "The source of the poison is approaching. After that, a small explosion happened behind them. Penguin suddenly raised his shield in front of him and shouted, "Be careful." A monster was aiming at them, trying to attack with its chainsaw. Zongwen said, "A strange 3-star monster with enhanced attacks, defense, and enormous regenerative abilities. Its weakness." Before he could finish speaking, Hao kicked off the ground and, jumping towards the monster, shouted, "He doesn't care that he ate 5 people and became even stronger. He is powerless against its extraordinary weapon." His partner desperately said, "His head." He turned around and shouted, "Huh?" He grabbed his head and shouted, "His weak point is his head." He hit him on the head? Idiot. The next second, Ning shot the monster in the head and then blew the smoke off the gun. Twirling it in her hand, she said, disappointingly for a 3-star monster, "Kill it with 1 blow." Pow, holding the spear he was swinging at the monster, said, "It's because his spear restricted its movement. Otherwise, how could she have fired?" His partner said, "Come on, they're a team. Everyone work together, okay?" He then ordered the others to check the perimeter. If the sources of the poisoning are gone, they should return and report to the captain. Penglun said, "Captain." He folded his arms and said that this was a fatal flaw in their team's work. How? Why is he acting without the leader's orders? Does he think he's smarter than Zongwen? He replied that he wasn't, and then the captain added, "He can handle planning and reconnaissance, but he just sits and watches when danger approaches." He pointed a finger at him and added, "He must remember that he is part of the team first and not the leader. If he continues to watch from the sidelines, he will simply sacrifice the lives of his teammates." In response, he adjusted his glasses and said that he was sorry. He should have helped. Then Wei Ming added, "Penglun, who was his shield supposed to protect?" "He must answer," he said in confusion. "His teammates." Then the captain added, "And Ruoya is the only member of his team?" In the end, no one cares about their personal interests. They must protect all their teammates. The 2 of them are so careless that they don't even have a sense of danger, and the rest act thoughtlessly when their teammates are fighting a monster. Where does such courage come from? He folded his arms across his chest and, frowning, said, "This is not a game. One small mistake and they will die. Everyone must be responsible for their teammates so that they all survive. Do they understand?" They answered positively, and then he added, he finished cursing. Their second mission could have gone even worse. With such power, they could handle a simple 4-star monster. And now he would reveal a military secret that must not be revealed to anyone. He took out a cigarette, took a drag, and added that Doomsday Base M had been destroyed by a monarch-level demon with a power greater than 10 stars. The authorities immediately raised the difficulty rating to 11, defining it as Armageddon. Zongwen was surprised. Armageddon? Penglun said he had never heard of such a thing. The captain blew smoke from his mouth and said that City M had lost over 17,000 evolved beings overnight. The government had been forced to use nuclear weapons, and even that had difficulty dealing with the monsters. As far as he knew, no monster corpses were found in the rubble. The authorities only wrote that they apparently retreated. Zongwen asked, had they used nuclear bombs and still failed to kill them? The captain replied, the 17 doors of the apocalypse had been affected to varying degrees. Given the changes in waves in space and time, the apocalypse in 10 days or more will be much worse than they expected. They will have a hard time facing stronger monsters. Roya put her hand to her chin and asked, Captain, how can they become stronger? Will there be special training? He took out a crystal and said, time is running out. The Special Assignments Bureau has distributed spiritual crystals. They should know what this means. Hao shouted joyfully. This can awaken hidden potential and allow abilities to develop even faster. The captain said, they have been selected to consume these crystals to become stronger. Everyone on this team must obtain the final 4 stars in the next 10 days for the future of humanity. Zongwen clenched his fist and assured, Captain, they will not fail. Hao added, for the future of humanity. Meanwhile, MC sat on the edge of a cliff and looked at his stats, which stated his name, Chenchu, level minor deity, extraordinary, strength 9,935, spirit 1,298, abilities, weapon superiority, sense superiority, sovereign superiority, talents, flying fist, slash, kick, moonstep, passive talents, mighty thunder, scarlet flame, weapon, heavenly sword, demon king armor, clone, ancient iguana, 3rd level evolution. He thought, given that ancient iguanas hunt for food in the fish farms of the northern sea, he should be able to evolve 4 times in a few days. After that, he would only care about Qian Qian's evolutionary progress. Meanwhile, Song Situ Qian Qian, she tearfully asked, where is she? She was in another space, in front of her, as if from smoke, the body of a dragon formed. Then the creature opened its mouth wide. She fearfully told it not to come near. She screamed that it must not come near. After that, she woke up on the bed, covering her naked body with a sheet. The protagonist sat in a chair nearby and asked how she felt. She looked at him and said, Sir, what is he talking about? He abruptly threw a mug at her. It shattered on her hand, and then he came closer and asked what it was like to be evolved. She looked at her hand in surprise and asked, what happened? He said, evolved with a single star capable of striking with a force of 500 kilograms and moving at a speed of 15 kilometers per second. He congratulated her. The evolution worked. She said she felt stronger. Had she really evolved? Becoming evolved is the dream of millions of people around the world. Low-level evolution inducers have become in demand on the black market. The price has skyrocketed to $50 million. However, using a low-level evolution inducer is associated with enormous risks. The slightest mistake can turn the user into a mutant. Many ordinary people dreamed of evolving and were shackled. In special cases, family members stood by with pistols until the evolution was complete. Once the body destabilized, an unspeakably terrible death ensued. Despite this, countless people eagerly embraced the drastic mutations, embarking on the path of evolution without hesitation. As the end of the world approached, the era of evolution had arrived. Sometime later, Aocho Island, the open sea. Izanami, hovering in the air, said, "Ibis, he must open the way." He agreed with her, then concentrated a barrier around himself and flew forward. The others followed, sinking to the bottom. Benton, behind Izanami, screamed, "The beast has released the aura of a king. You must not look him in the eye." Inari adjusted her mask and said, "Even in his youthful form, he has reached the 9th level of a magical beast, a terrifying king-class creature." Susanoo asked, "Is she mistaken?" She channeled energy forward and said that this beast was slightly stronger than the king-level creature that attacked their base last month. Her instincts couldn't be wrong. Izanami, striking a pose, said, "Such a powerful primordial beast will definitely give them a lot of essence." Benton, "She must use her illusion magic to take control of it. The rest of us must squeeze out every last drop of its essence and destroy its body, leaving no trace." The others shouted, "Praise the gods." The next second, the monster screamed loudly. Benton, concentrating, directed waves of energy directly at the monster. Izanami put her hand to her side and said, "They must watch. The power of the beast, how beautiful it is. They must absorb it, gather it, become it. Darkness will devour everything. Chaos will rule all. They must pray to the darkness, pray to chaos, pray to eternal existence. The interweaving of darkness and light, the cycle of life and death, all will become nothing. They must become immortal, must stand as gods. They must pray to the darkness, pray to chaos, pray to eternal existence." Their desire for transcendental power never wavered. As the flames of destruction tore through the heavens, a mushroom cloud blossomed, a symbol of an end shrouded in death. The shockwaves shook the earth like divine punishment. Civilization and order crumbled to splinters. The world became primordial chaos. 30 days and nights passed as the ashes settled. Once towering mountains became deserts, rivers became dead lakes. In the cracks of the blasted earth, survivors stared in horror. The remains of colossal, mountain-sized beasts, glowing with a strange metallic sheen, remained in battle poses even after destruction, as if quietly telling the story of a lost era. In their crystallized bone marrow, they found a substance that sparkled like stars. When light fell on it, the substance pulsed as if alive, refracting the colors of the visible spectrum. After 700 days and nights of study, they finally unlocked its secrets. It could reconstruct the molecular structure of living things, allowing carbon to break free from the shackles of evolution. A scientist, looking at it with tears in his eyes, declared, "This is the fire of Prometheus, the forbidden fruit of wisdom." The Prime Minister held up a flask of glowing blue material at a press conference and declared, "Today they must crown themselves gods. They will call this substance divine in origin." But fate soon revealed its horrific face. The first volunteers turned into crystalline statues in the sacred blue light. Their final expressions were forever frozen in a mixture of agony and ecstasy. Their fiery flesh was like tissue paper, struggling to survive the flames. Finally, they realized that this was not the power of creation. Human bodies became ordinary clay. They couldn't be a sacred gift from the gods. But fate always had a plan. After the apocalypse, monsters began to roam the earth. Unexpectedly, some humans and survivors who came into contact with a divine substance were able to evolve by collecting the monster's rot. Only then did they realize that mythology hadn't abandoned them, it had accelerated them. In this era, they are the successors of myth, evolving, growing stronger, until one day they reach the world of the gods. Izanami, spreading her arms, said, "They must become gods. They must pray to the gods." At that moment, the MC who had climbed onto the monster said, "They must pray to the gods." She was surprised. "Who's here?" He pointed at himself and told them to pray to him. His name is Chenchu. Izanami anxiously called out to Inari and told her to analyze the information immediately. In response, she said, "Yes, great one." Then she moved forward and, placing a mask on her face, used the divine gaze of Kojo. At that moment, the protagonist lowered himself down and asked, "Sensory abilities like observation haki? No, that's much lower in power." The next second, Inari's face mask cracked, releasing magical impulses. Then she fell down. Izanami, turning around, asked, "Where's the intelligence?" Inari, rising from the cracked ground, said, "The enemy has the same mystical ability of foresight." Her divine gaze was reflected. Izanami was surprised. "What?" Then Susanoo approached her and, stretching the joint of his hand, called out to her, "Great. What difference does it make what kind of magic? He will destroy it with one blow." Then he swung his fist and shouted, "He must die, idiot!" He rushed forward, but at that moment, MC appeared to the side and asked in bewilderment, "Dare he attack first?" Then he turned around, but the protagonist sharply kicked him, sending him floating. Then Daikokuten concentrated energy in his hand and, directing it at his comrade, shouted, "Repel." Susanoo stopped a few centimeters from the sharp growths of the rock. The protagonist asked, "Gravity control? Very beautiful." Susanoo shouted, "He must stay away, Daikokuten." He approached and then, pointing his hand at the protagonist, said, "It's his turn to feel pierced." Then he landed, directing energy to the bottom. The ground beneath the protagonist's feet became covered in cracks. Then a powerful explosion occurred. He screamed in surprise. Even gravity doesn't affect him. Then the protagonist, clenching his fists, rose higher, energy raging in different directions around his body. Inari screamed in surprise. He's not using absolutely all of his power. Daikokuten, concentrating energy in his hands, clenched his teeth and wondered, what the hell? He can suppress divine power? Susanoo clenched his fists and, indignant, asked, dare he insult him, so he should demand repayment in blood. He then charged, using Nura's iron cannon. MC, looking at him, thought, a physical technique? He then grabbed the attacker's fist, stopping him. At that moment, the cliff behind him shattered into smaller rocks. Susanoo screamed, this monster! He then flew further away, and the protagonist, letting go of his hand, threw him to the ground, then concentrated energy in his hand and charged. Susanoo thought in fear, he's going to die. He won't be able to repel this attack. At that moment, Daikokuten directed his energy at his comrade, knocking him aside. Meanwhile, MC used a burst of scarlet blood flame. Then Izanami said, gods of Takamagahara, they must join forces to defeat the enemy. The others agreed. Yes, great one. Ibis began concentrating energy in his hands, creating stone hands emerging from the ground and heading toward the protagonist. He laughed lightly, then directed his hands toward the ground again, using the shackles of the god, stone iron shackles. The stone growths moved toward the protagonist, trapping him in a ball. Ibis, looking at this, said, stones strengthened by divine power are even stronger than iron. Even if he has extraordinary abilities, he will suffocate in his stone prison once the air runs out. Inari pointed her hand forward and said in surprise, he melts stones with incredible heat. Afterwards, the protagonist's hand emerged from the molten portion of the stone ball, and the hole grew larger. Susanoo told him to take a look. His stone shell was as soft as gooey natto. Is he even useful? Ibis placed his hand on the ground and shouted, one layer isn't enough, I need to add another. Then he used the god's shackles, silver rods. Stone protrusions emerged from the ground again, and he shouted, 2 layers aren't enough, add a third. He used the god's shackles, heavenly golden palace. More stone pillars emerged from the ground, trying to cover the protagonist. Ibis knelt down and said, that triple bind has used up all his divine powers. Susanoo turned around and said he didn't mean he should use his strongest ability, he was just joking. Kagatsuchi then said, no one survived Ibis's heavenly golden palace. The battle was already over. Susanoo looked at him and said, he thought he was some bigwig back then. Didn't the Takamagahara pantheon destroy him? Izanami said, the obstacle is removed now. He must kill this lizard and suck out all its essence. They looked at the creature, and then she asked, what is this? What does her divine infusion of the spirit of Inari see? She looked at the stone growths and said, that's a seal. She can't handle him. He can overcome metal structures. Idis's triple seal has no effect against him. At that moment, flashes of energy appeared in the stone growths, and the protagonist said that if she wishes to hunt the young ancient monster, she must first step over his corpse. Otherwise, they shouldn't blame him for trampling their bodies. Ibis, looking at the crumbling stone growths, shouted, he's definitely sealed him. The MC, having destroyed the rocks around him, said, come on, he will take their bodies, one by one, he will grind them into dust. Kagatsuchi concentrated fiery energy around himself and said, he has killed their comrades. Enough chatter. Anyone who tries to block his path to deity will meet only death. And his flame is different from his sorcery. His divine power is capable of creating karmic flames that burn continuously for 7 days. The protagonist, having concentrated energy around himself, shouted, his lukewarm flames are more suitable for heating tea. His opponent then created an arrow of karmic annihilation of the lower world, and directing it forward, shouted he must die. The protagonist sighed, creating a smokescreen. Kagatsuchi, looking at this, asked in surprise, huh? Susanoo shouted, enough chatter. He attacks from below, and they press from above. Daikokuten he must support from the air. He shouted that he understood, and they headed to attack. Izanami, gritting her teeth, said she couldn't believe he could fight 3 of them at once. Benton, channeling energy forward, asked who else would help her defeat this demon. Susanoo, charging, used Raging Raksha Cannon, but the protagonist easily parried his attack, sending him plummeting to the bottom. The protagonist used Yomi's Myriad Flame Annihilation. Inari, looking at her comrade, shouted, be careful, that's the mark that seals the dragon. He looked down, seeing a magical symbol. Golden chains erupted from the magic circles, binding Daikokuten and knocking him to the ground. Inari looked on with a worried expression and said that this was magic of a higher order than Ebisu's seal. Izanami called out to Benton and asked what she was going to do. She said with a serious expression that it was time for them to psychologically unite and act. Her mouth opened unnaturally wide, and she said that even if the devil's physical body was strong, he would not be able to repel her psychic attack. This voice came from Yomi. He must hear it and fall. This is Yomi Kotodama. Chenchu looked at her and released Kagatsuchi, whom he was holding with one hand. She said that by defiling Yomi in this body, she would bind his soul. He must listen. She is the law of death, like a mother's embrace, like a child's grip. He must fall and immerse himself in the path of Yomi, on which even gods fall. He ran back to her and said that her Kotodama was still active. The devil could no longer move. He had to plunge into the world of a nightmare. At the same time, he saw her very large, and she said that the power of the real world did not matter here. This was her mental world. It could be broken as easily as moving a hand. His physical magic was useless, and he could not use witchcraft. This was a solitary arena for spiritual combat. He began coughing up blood, and she asked with a haughty smirk, Does it hurt? In her world, the feeling of pain was amplified hundreds of times. The best thing here was that he would not lose consciousness. In fact, he would think even more clearly. Every nerve would transmit this agony. She attacked him from different sides and he asked, since this was the mental world, then these imaginary wounds could not be fatal, right? She said that, however, this was enough to make him beg for death. Her kotodama would bring him to his knees and make him beg for death. For example, right now he feels like killing himself here is the only way out. He said with a smirk that he means that if he doesn't even feel pain, then her kotodama is just an intrusive noise. She was shocked by what she heard and said that it was completely impossible. She dealt another blow and asked, does he really not feel any pain? He calmly looked at her and said that if this feeling of pain is taken as 100 points, then the pain from the boiling of his blood during the activation of the bloody explosion of crimson flames can be equated to 1,000,000. Lightning began to emanate from his eye, and he said that her imagination is definitely interesting. From now on, her soul will remember one thing: she lost. Because of this, her world collapsed. She fell to the ground and said only that she lost. In the real world, he ordered her to get up, and she immediately headed towards him. Izanami asked with a shocked look, did he make her his puppet? Did her kotodama reflect on her? Benton stopped and said that they needed to leave. This place was ominous. With a displeased expression, she said that this was betrayal. She was trained to kill her own master. The protagonist said that today's battle was over. They could remove her from here. His control over the victor's aura would wear off in 3 days. In the future, they might not even think about his scabbard. She raised her hand and asked, does he think it will end like this? Those who dare challenge a deity will pay with their blood. She called her name and said that now she could die. Tengu flew very quickly next to her and killed her with one blow of his wing. He watched what was happening and said that he had never seen someone so cruel, someone who would kill themselves. Inari, looking worried, asked the great ruler why she did this. She was definitely one of them. Izanami, with a calm expression, said that useless people have no right to become gods. The shell of a loser is not worthy of the gift sent by the gods. The interweaving of light and darkness, the cycle of life and everything will return to oblivion. They must become immortal gods. The interweaving of light and darkness, the cycle of life and death, this is Takamagahara's dance of demise. MC used a bloody explosion of crimson flames with a small smile. His body changed, and she, with a shocked expression, said that something was wrong. His original power and the lizard behind him were so similar. What actually connects him to this? He ran towards them very quickly with a serious expression. She was shocked by this. Tengu flew up to her and protected her from his very strong attack with his wings. He continued to deal strong blows, but he stood his ground and threw him back with a flap of his wings. One of them used the skill Yata no Kagami, Shinsho Yokurin. She created several sources of light, forcing him to cover his face with his hand. Izanami watched this with a calm expression and said that this skill is capable of piercing the shields of demonic beasts. It is like microwaves, destroying him from the inside. He took out his sword, which he stabbed into the ground, and created a barrier to protect himself from this light. A guy emerged from his shadow behind him and used the skill Kajikui Shungoku Satsu. He stabbed him in the back with his sword, but he anticipated it and created the armor of a demon emperor. With a wave of his hand, he released flames which he attacked him with, but the guy disappeared. She watched this with a smirk and said that it was useless. Where there is light, there is shadow. And as long as shadows exist, Tsukuyomi is immortal. He emerged from his shadow again, used 2 skills in a row, and attacked with his sword. However, his attacks were unable to pierce his armor, and he stood calmly in place. He hid in the shadows and said that he had amazing defensive power. Tengu took advantage of his distraction, flew towards him very quickly and struck him with his wing. With this blow, he was able to break a small part of his armor. Izanami hovered in the air and said that his attacks could destroy the defense of enemies. Even the strongest shield would be destroyed with a single breath. Chenchu smiled and said that it was a good try. He swung his sword with the power of his mind, but Tengu managed to dodge this attack. He caught his sword and jumped up to dodge the Jigoku Yaga skill. Tsukuyomi continued to use his skills, trying to attack him, but he easily dodged and reflected these blows. He broke his sword with one blow and left a cut on his body. His body turned to dust, and he asked, so it is impossible to kill him as long as the shadow exists, right? Then he will simply evaporate the shadows along with him. He released a bright flash of light, causing his opponent to be thrown out of the shadows and onto the surface. He was severely injured and fell to the ground. He didn't have time to do anything because he jumped towards him and stabbed his sword into his body with terrifying force. He killed him with that blow, after which he turned around and asked, who else would dare to oppose him? The girl was very worried about this and loudly called out to her brother, but Tengu raised his hand to stop her. Izanami, with a displeased expression, loudly asked, what are they all standing there for? They should take them and attack together. The rest of her team was very scared and no longer wanted to fight. The girl became very angry, continued to cry over her brother's death, and asked, how dare they sell her labor? These are freaks who seek death. Why sacrifice like that? Izanami said that she allowed all her younger brothers to be killed in order to obtain the origin essence. They are future gods and must kill this demon. She continued to cry and said that they would get enough essence to become even stronger. However, she did not want to become stronger. She grabbed her by the neck, lifted her off the ground and told this coward that she just wanted to be a normal person, to be a good older sister. She betrayed the oath of the Yaki clan. This is a grave crime. They are the heirs of the myth. They are constantly evolving and constantly becoming stronger, until one day they will be able to touch the divine world. He insulted her with a serious expression, to which she called Tengu and said that he must kill this traitor. Her heart wavered. She was unworthy of the divine ship. He did not do it, turned away from her. She looked at the others, but they could not do anything because of fear. The protagonist, with a smirk, thrust his sword into the ground, leaned on it, and said that he had no intention of fighting them to the death. They should abandon their enmity and can leave here. Izanami was very angry about this and asked he wants her to give up. She killed the girl with her own hand, began to transform, and loudly declared that it was absolutely impossible. One of the snakes on her head began to eat her, and she said that every drop of origin essence would be her food. All their powers would belong to her. She began to eat the rest of her squad members who were standing nearby. Inari looked at this with a worried look and said that she was absorbing the abilities of their Yaki clan, so she sees them only as. She didn't have time to finish because she agreed and said that their clan was ridiculous. They were nothing more than reservoirs for cultivating the essence of origin. Here, only she is worthy of becoming a god. MC was still watching from the sidelines and said that this was a rather unexpected plot twist. Are they having problems within their own ranks? Susanoo said that although he can't stand him, this is a personal matter for the Yaki clan. If he doesn't want to die, he should run away from here. He threw a large stone at her and loudly said that this is a battle for survival. One of her snakes destroyed the stone and she asked, so he is another dog who will try to kill his own master? Daikokuten manipulated the stone's gravity and, with a serious expression, said that they were orphans, test subjects, survivors of disasters. Then Izanami gave them stones and said that by becoming gods, they can escape the suffering of mortals. Some of them suffered after using these stones, and she, with an evil grin, said that from this day on, they are the Yaki clan. Currently, he said with a dissatisfied expression that from the very beginning they gathered and became the Yaki clan for one reason, to live on. He tried to attack her with the stones he controlled, but she released a powerful burst of energy. She ran up to him very quickly from behind and said that she had already received the powers of light and darkness. He may not even think he was capable of defeating her. She used her skill to create snakes from the shadows, which immobilized him. He resisted with all his might and said that he would never submit. She squeezed his body with shadow snakes and killed him. He disintegrated into many stones and she began to laugh loudly. Having absorbed his abilities, she waved her hand and pulled the rest of the clan members towards her. As they flew towards her, she said that they should give up their powers. Chenchu very quickly ran up to Inari and grabbed her leg, which greatly surprised her. Kagatsuchi enveloped his body in flames and loudly declared he would fight her to the death. Susanoo channeled energy into his fist before attacking, loudly declaring that even if they both died, he would not let her win. Izanami merely grinned and sent two large snakes flying toward them. She killed one of them with this attack, but Kagatsuchi, while flying, loudly declared that even if he couldn't fight back, he would pull her along with him. He flew into the snake's mouth and used Yomi's burn skill, a flash of fury in the sun. The snake began to stretch, and a powerful explosion destroyed the monster. All that remained of him was a crystal, and she said that he chose to destroy himself rather than let her consume him. The snake brought her this stone, and she grinned and said he was too naive. His body is merely a vessel for the essence of origin. Even if he kills himself, the essence of origin within him will not dissipate. The snake absorbed the stone and took its powers. She said with a sly smile that she had already absorbed 7. Inari took out her dagger and said that killing herself was useless. There was no way out. The Tengu looked at this with a serious expression, and Izanami said that only the two of them remained. He, with a serious expression, folded his hands in a seal and disappeared. She asked with a smirk, did he run away? This is a smart, cowardly, and realistic choice. Inari looked at the protagonist with a very worried expression and said that with his power, he would definitely be able to destroy the crystal with the essence of origin inside her. She begs him to kill her and then destroy the crystal. She does not want to become part of her powers. Only he can do this. He looked at her with a calm expression and silently. She flew closer with a wide smile and asked, does she want to use the power of a demon to destroy the essence of origin? She betrayed the will of the Takamagahara gods. She is also a traitor. She started to panic even more and said loudly that he had to kill her faster and destroy the crystal inside her. Otherwise, it would be too late. She laughed, looking at this and asked, does she want to die? She will squeeze the origin essence from this demon and the lizard at the same time. After that, she will ascend to the gods. He took the dagger from her and with a calm expression said that she did not need to die. Izanami pointed her snakes at them and said loudly that the two of them would sacrifice themselves together to the new god. He swung and threw the dagger very hard at her head. He looked at her with a serious expression and said that he had decided not to interfere in their quarrel, but she tried to drag his lizard sword into it, so he changed his mind. She pulled the dagger out of her head and said that this power was not enough to kill her. He ran up to her very quickly, struck her with a very strong fist, and said that today would be her end. His hand was glowing with energy, and he asked how she felt about that blow. When the dust cleared, he saw that she was standing on her feet and said that it didn't even tickle her. He looked at this and used the skill, lightning tempers his body, fire forges bones. A bloody explosion of scarlet flame. Powerful lightning energy began to emanate from his body and he flew towards her very quickly. He delivered a very strong blow to the ground, but she managed to jump aside. He looked at her with a smirk and said that if she still had tricks left, then she should show them. She released snakes in the shadows and used the skill Shadow Absorption, Dark Yamada. He snapped his fingers and created energy which destroyed these snakes. She was shocked by this and asked, "Didn't it really work?" MC, with a calm expression, began to slowly walk towards her, while lightning from his body struck the ground. Izanami looked at him and thought that even while walking, the pressure of this monster was more terrifying than that of the gods. She assumed a fighting stance and said that copper would corrode his flesh, silver would seal his soul, and gold would destroy existence. A large green snake burst from the ground next to him, which he destroyed with his lightning. A blue snake burst forth nearby, but he grabbed it with his hand of energy and used the skill Mirage in charred coals. At the same moment, another snake burst from the ground under his feet, its mouth wide open. He watched calmly, and the snake was able to swallow him. She watched from the side and said that it seemed he had gone silent. He remained inside with a calm expression and thought he was speechless. With one attack, he was able to cut off the snake's head and climbed out. He ran up to her very quickly from behind and said that even after absorbing her comrades, she was still weak. He struck her with an incredibly fast blow, aimed at her neck, and she didn't even have time to process what had happened. She refused to believe it and said that she was a goddess and shouldn't die. She clutched at her wound and said that she must rise above all and ascend to the divine palace. She must look down on all living things from the heights of a deity. Chenchu looked at her and, with a calm expression, said that she had enough of crimes. She continued to refuse to believe what was happening, but still fell to the ground. The cave they were in began to collapse, and a frightened Inari hid behind a rock and said that she couldn't. He approached her, extended his hand, and said that she was no longer there. He took her in his arms, after which they very quickly floated out together. They jumped onto the nearest ship, and a surprised crew member asked where those two had come from. He didn't recognize their language and wondered if they were foreigners. He pointed at Inari, then to the shore, and politely asked if they could take her ashore. The two foreigners threw up their hands and looked at each other blankly. Looking at their reactions, he thought he didn't know if they understood anything or not. He carried her to the bed and thought that humanity was a species extremely prone to internal strife and selfishness. If you look back at history, the number of people killed by their own kind is tens of thousands of times greater than the number of victims of disasters and monsters. Most people, having gained strength, do not think about protecting the weak or restoring justice, but draw their swords against those even weaker. He does not deny that in this world there will always be good people ready to step forward. He left the ship and thought, however, that human nature is too stubborn and vile, so he does not hesitate to assume the worst of anyone who might threaten his survival. He is not good, he does not weep for souls, he is not evil, and does not feed on bitter hatred. He is not chaos, and does not stir up the ashes of all living things. He is not order, and does not bind the roots of the universe. He is not light, and does not illuminate the path of the lost. He is not darkness, and does not conceal the prying fire. He is not truth, and does not forge eternal form. He is not illusion, and does not leave a fading trace. He is the blade hanging between good and evil, and he alone will cut through the twilight of chaos. Meanwhile, in the special control, Weiming stopped the video with the protagonist and said that this was a fragment of the battle footage. According to the latest data, it was confirmed that his strength has exceeded the 5-star level. Everyone was surprised by this, and he said that a pillar of heavy concrete 100 centimeters in diameter, was shattered by a single blow. According to preliminary estimates, the force of the impact exceeded 1,500 tons. Pan Hao was very surprised by what he heard and loudly asked if he was even human. Penglin said with a dissatisfied expression that his limit was 1.5 tons. Does that mean his strength is 1,000 times greater than his? Zhongwen said that according to the world ranking of evolutionists, the benchmark for striking power for a 5-star level is 100 tons. However, his 1,500 tons is already a 6th or 7th star level. Right? Weiming said that once an evolutionist surpasses the 5-star level, physical strength ceases to be the criterion for strength, replaced by supernatural power. Pan Hao asked what this supernatural power was and whether he would have it. He said with a serious expression that he had heard that each country has its own evolution system, and everyone's ultimate goal is to awaken supernatural abilities, such as gravity control, fire raging throughout the body, telepathy, and so on. People are ready to do anything to reach a level above 5 stars as quickly as possible. At least as far as he knows, the neighboring state R is developing technologies for the accelerated evolution of their evolved ones. They, weaklings, haven't even reached 4 stars, and they're already dreaming of something something sublime. They all raised their hands and agreed with him. After some time, MC was lying on the couch, looking at the crystal in his hand, and said that he had heard that it was supposedly a source, but in fact, it was just slightly more advanced crystals of spiritual energy. Izanami couldn't even imagine that this thing would end up in his hands. The system notified that the body stats had increased. He looked at his stats and asked, is he stuck at 9,999 points? The constitution points have reached the limit. Is it really time to start the 4th stage of evolution? Xiaoxi was sitting next to him, called his name and asked if he was okay. He sat up and said with a small smile that everything was fine. She said that she was hungry. He asked if he had some energy crystals. Did she want them? She agreed, and he began feeding her the crystals and said she should eat more. When she grew stronger and could restore the gate, they would go fight the monsters together. Sometime later, an alarm sounded in the building and people loudly announced, "Attention, the global pollution level has sharply exceeded its limit." He repeated, all nearby bases are to immediately activate the 1st level defense protocol. The polluted energy has exceeded the critical limit by 20 times. Energy fluctuations continue to intensify. All personnel are to immediately go on high alert. Attention, evolved beings below rank 4 are prohibited from leaving the purification field. Contact with the pollution zone will cause irreversible mutation. All fighters must take up positions. According to preliminary data, the first wave of pollution will reach the defense line in 72 hours. Chenchu stood up abruptly in his villa and thought he had a feeling as if some kind of large-scale disaster was approaching. Jian rode up to his house on a motorcycle and took off her helmet. He came out to her and said that he begs her not to wake people up this morning. He couldn't remember her name, and she repeated it with a displeased expression and said that his food had arrived. He asked with a small smile, he hasn't ordered anything at all for the last 2 days, so where is the delivery from? She opened the box and said that he hadn't ordered food for 2 days in a row. She was worried that he would die of hunger in his room. She took out 2 packages and said that on the left was his favorite, stewed chicken in sauce 3 times a week, and on the right, malaro, which he likes to order at night, spicy and with extra flavor. He looked at her with a confused look and asked, have you lost your mind and are stalking him? She said that she did say that she was going to look after him. She gave him the packages and said that that's why she watches every moment of his life. After that, she started to leave and said that he should eat while it's warm. She winked at him and said it was time for her to leave. She left and he wondered what it mattered to her whether he ordered food or not. At that moment, his stomach growled and he thought that this woman had clearly set everything up. Xiaoxi flew to him and called his name, and he asked what happened. She said that she felt a new door and they were ready. He said with a smile that as soon as they had breakfast, they would leave right away. Sometime later, in an abandoned unfinished tower, they came to the portal together and she said that they were there. He should open it more carefully. He put on his armor and the system notified that a hint, the Emperor Demon armor, increases resistance to contaminated energy. He called her and said that they could begin. A stream of dark energy was directed at him from the portal and he said that the level of contamination was too high. Is it not holding back even with the enhanced protection of the armor? He went inside and saw nothing and thought that the color of perception should bloom. He began to see and noticed a large stone flying at him. He cut this stone with his sword and asked, will he be attacked immediately after meeting? That's what he needs. He noticed a monster standing nearby and thought it was a hint. A 4-armed primate demon had been detected. This monster very quickly jumped towards the protagonist and dealt a very strong blow with its paw. He blocked this blow and the system notified that the degree of infection was increasing. He thought with a smile, I wonder if he pushes his strength to the limit, will he be able to destroy this monster with one blow? He began to channel the energy in his body and the demon immediately noticed it. He dealt a strong blow with his sword and threw the monster away. He immediately jumped towards it, swung his fist, and thought that a quick victory was what he needed. He dealt a very powerful blow, killed him, and said that the force of this blow was approaching 500 tons. Even the strongest body could not withstand such an explosion. He picked up the stone left after the demon's death and thought that the energy concentration was extremely high. It was very similar to the Izanami source crystal, but this one was much smaller. He destroyed the crystal with one hand, and the system announced that 1,000 units of evolutionary energy had been received. He said that it was a pure energy crystal. It was worth absorbing one and immediately receiving evolutionary energy. For the next evolution, another 10,000 units were needed. Unexpectedly, it seemed that he had found a way to quickly evolve. After some time, he came out onto a high cliff from where he could see many islands and a huge tree. He looked at this and asked how many such crystals were hidden in this wild and untouched jungle. He walked along the path and with a self-confident look thought that his gift of observation was revealed to the maximum. He saw large insects carrying crystals, and the system reported a magical ant, a 3rd-rank natural monster. He thought the energy of the magical crystal in his body was much more turbid than that of a magical monkey. Could it be that they were feeding on these primeval crystals? After some time, he saw large flying insects, and the system reported a magical mosquito, a 4th-rank natural monster. He looked at this and thought that the magical mosquito had noticed its target and that it was not him. The mosquitoes began to kill the ants and suck out their energy. MC was very surprised by this and wondered if the monster had evolved right there. This 4th-rank specimen, having absorbed the magical ant, immediately turned into an elite 5th-rank monster. A magical monkey quickly jumped up to these mosquitoes and began to eat these monsters. The system reported that it was a magical monkey, a 6th-rank natural monster. He looked at this and thought that each hunt, each evolution, step by step, purifies this raw energy. When such monsters reach the end of their life's journey, they all, as one, return to the foot of the tree of life, to the sanctuary entwined with its roots, and there they die. Their bodies slowly disintegrate, and the magical essence forged throughout their lives returns to the roots of the great tree, becoming nourishment for its eternal existence. The tree of life remains silent, only gently touching the rest of these faithful creatures with its roots. New eggs of magical ants are already maturing in the anthill. Soon a new generation of crystal carriers will hatch, to continue this endless cycle of energy, born into slavery, dying as food, and so on without end. Only this perfect cycle of energy will come to an end today. Everything they forged their entire lives will soon be his. He ran forward very quickly and killed several monsters that stood before him. Their bodies fell to the ground and began to crumble, leaving behind crystals. He raised his hand and began to attract all the crystals around him, and the system announced that 8 low-level crimson crystals were equal to 1 medium crimson crystal. 8 medium crimson crystals were equal to 1 supreme crimson crystal. He activated fusion, and the system announced that the power had evolved into a crystal. A supreme crimson magic crystal not only provides a huge amount of evolved energy, but also has a 1% probability of triggering random area super evolution during evolution. If successful, the resulting force will be many times greater than a normal breakthrough. Chenchu read this and asked, "Is random super evolution also possible?" He thought that 1% probability was too small. If this attempt at evolution does not lead to super evolution, then this extremely rare supreme crimson crystal will simply be wasted. He said that there must be something higher than the crimson magic crystal. He saw the monsters surrounding him and said with a grin that he would do it again. He ran towards the monsters and began killing them with his sword. He looked around and said that he was almost done. He collected the crystals, and the system notified that with 8 superior scarlet crystals, they could be fused into a medium blue crystal. He read this and activated the fusion. He received a medium blue magic crystal, and the system notified that the probability of super evolution had increased to 10%. He put the crystal away, and with a serious expression, thought that this was not enough. He needed the full 100%. After some time, he collected more crystals and asked what the result would be if he fused the crystals of all the magic crystals in this forest. He activated the fusion, and the system notified that the successful creation of a superior blue magic crystal. A superior blue magic crystal allows its owner to activate super evolution with a 100% chance. He said with a smile that after killing all the monsters in this forest of death, he finally got it. If he used it, he was guaranteed to receive a random super evolution effect. He was about to use it, but at that moment, a huge monster flew towards him. The protagonist managed to jump aside and thought that he had never encountered such a powerful pressure of the royal will. He looked at it with a serious expression and thought that the aura area was capable of directly distorting the environment itself. This was no longer possible for ordinary monsters. He exterminated the entire forest to create this crystal, but he wants to profit from what he created. The system notified that this was a 9th-rank magical creature, the Lord of Chimeras. He smiled and wondered if letting him absorb the crystal himself would be even better. Since these were the rules of the Forest of Death, then it would allow him to complete the final tempering for him. The monster absorbed his crystal, and he said with a grin that he would ensure the super evolution probability exceeded 100%. The system announced that the Chimera's evolution to its supreme form, a 10th-rank monster, had been completed. He stood still and said that first he would swallow it, and then give him 100 times more.